Chairman of the Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a revised agenda. Every one of the commissioners has been handed out a copy. There's copies for the public at the front door. This revised agenda includes moving the election of the chairperson, president, and vice president right up to the top of the agenda, and then deletes it later in the agenda. It also adds a resolution to committee appointments for the resolution committee. So at this point, the first order of our business will be the appointment of the Parks and Recreation President and Vice President, which requires a motion for each one.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate.
Do we need a second?
We need in order, if there needs to be discussion, there should be a second.
That's right.
I will make a motion. Now, can we make other recommendations or other nominations? Okay.
Not if there's not a second.
The motion with no second doesn't stand. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Chris Maxbauer for Parks and Rec President.
I'll support that.
It's been moved and seconded for Chris Maxbauer as President of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to have some discussion. I think the Parks and Rec President has to be more than one-sided. Right now, I feel that Russ has done a great job covering all the park and recreational parks. I could not support Chris because I feel her main thing is the pool. And I don't know if the pool is more, our park and recreation is more than just the pool. It's all of our parks. It's the ability to be able to manage. It's the ability to delegate authority. And I feel that Chris would not be able to do that. So I could not support Chris on that.
May
Yes,
I?
Chris.
Jerry, I very much appreciate your opinion. I hope that the fact that I have walked with my husband all of the trails, we go out to Maple Bay, we use all of our parks, Jerry. I'm committed to every single one of our parks. I'm committed to Maple Bay. I'm committed to the Keystone Soccer Complex. I'm sorry you feel that way, but if I am selected as president, I hope I prove you wrong this year. I certainly will try.
Any other discussion? Yes, Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, I want to briefly express my utmost gratitude for your chairmanship over many years. Not only have you agreed to step up to the plate and be the chair for at least the 5 years I've been on the commission, many more, but you've done above and beyond the call of duty in generously giving up your services to the commission and to the community, and I want to take a moment to briefly express how grateful I am for you doing that for this commission.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
My first meeting, but we did have a little orientation, and I know that Russ has given up more than his time. He's given up his heart and soul, and you can just tell it from all the involvement that he's had. And I want to say that, you know, I've respected Russ for years. I've respected Christine for years, and Christine was very active in the city parks and considering the rules and attending boring meetings about whether we're going to allow people to have picnics, et cetera, at the city parks. And so I see another side from my prior experience as to her love for parks, and I don't mean by my support to her to be in any way show any kind of ingratitude, especially as one of the two new guys, I guess, on the board here. So I thank Russ personally, and I think his planning expertise is beyond question throughout the community.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, voice vote of aye for the motion, for approval.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye.
Motion carried. One opposed? Okay. Christine, your chairman.
Thank you all very much. I'm honored. And I'm certainly going to try to do my very best for all of our parks. We will start by welcoming our new members, and I think it would,
We also need a vice president.
you're
Vice
exactly right. Thank you, Jason. I'm off to a roaring start. I will open the floor for nominations for vice president.
I'd like to make a motion for Jerry Rakowski.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Discussion. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Congratulations, Jerry.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is to welcome new members. And I think it would be helpful if every one of us would just introduce ourselves to each other. I know we did that briefly as we came into the meeting, and tell, a little bit about what our background is, what our interest in parks is. And so, Commissioner Byrne, would you start, please?
Good evening and welcome, new members. My name is Chris Byrne. I've lived here in Traverse City almost 15 years. I have 2 small children, and we are a very active outdoor family. We enjoy all of our parks, not only the county, but as well as the city and throughout the state and the country. So being that I like to give back to the community, I felt it was important for me to become a member of this board and help continue the growth of our county through the Parks Department.
Bob?
Most of my interaction with parks hasn't been necessarily with the county parks except for the Boardman River Valley. I've utilized the Civic Center extensively, and as a special ed teacher, utilized it with my students for about 20 years. And so so to me, the quality of the parks tells a lot about the quality of life of a community. And consistently, I'm also have been a planning commissioner in Acme Township since 2000. And I've done a lot to extend the parks in that area, including Maple Bay. And I'm also an avid wildlife person and have advocated for wildlife preservation and places for them to continue to exist as we develop as a community. Having lived downstate and seen a lot of places where they could live disappear, I moved up here purposely because of the beauty and because of the wildlife amenity that this area offered. And so so that's basically my background.
Thank you. Russ?
Russ Clark, I've been in the community for 35 years, practicing as a landscape architect and planner, and had the opportunity to work with Parks and Rec as a consultant prior to becoming a commissioner, and have thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to help better the park system within the county for the residents of the community. And I'm a firm believer that our Parks and Recreation system throughout the region is a major factor in quality of life for our region.
Peter?
My name is Pete Doran. I just was appointed. This is my first meeting. I've been involved with parks on the city level and also on a personal level as one of the 3 people that got the TART Trail started some years ago. So I'm really proud of that. And when I look back, I mean, that was one of the most rewarding things that I did. So I hope to carry that through with the county park system and perhaps with other parks, but primarily the county park system. Take those assets and preserve them and continue them. Parks, are places where animals live, but they're also places of community where people can congregate and get together in different fashions, be it a sporting event or just be it a snowshoe hike. I mean, there's that interaction level that is very important to the quality of life that Russ talked about. It's not just the trees, it's the people underneath the trees that are interacting and having conversations. So that's why I'm here.
Al?
Al Larson. I'm originally from Indiana. Grew up in a town similar in size to Traverse City,
I spent 24 years in the Air Force, mostly as a pilot. When I retired in summer of 2007, we could pick to live anywhere in the country, and we chose Traverse City because of the high quality of life that it seemed to offer. We had spent a tour in Marquette, Michigan, and really loved the North Woods and the Four Seasons and the snow and the water, and wanted to come back to this area. I have 2 teenage sons in the Traverse City school system. I work at an air charter company out at the airport, where I'm the director of operations, and it's time for me to start pitching in and helping the community that I live in, and I'm very glad to be here.
And I'm Chris Maxbauer, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm born and raised in Traverse City. I'm a 5th-generation native and very proud of that fact. I'm an avid and enthusiastic user of all of our parks. I hike, I downhill ski, I cross-country ski. I'm a terrible skater, but I've done it, and I swim.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Kevin McEllion. It's my privilege to serve as County Drain Commissioner. I've been a resident of the county for the last 30 years, and I've been County Drain Commissioner for the last 5 years. It's by legislative statute that the Drain Commissioner serves on the Parks and Recreation Commission. But I'm excited because it does merge my mission statement as Drain Commissioner of stewardship of our land and water resources. In addition to that, it's merging the needs of the citizens while still providing the stewardship of those land and water resources. Thank you.
Jerry?
All right, I'm Jerry Ruskowski, or as it goes by, Gerard. I've been coming to the Traverse City area since 1963. I am, after Russ and Richard, I think I'm the third oldest or third longest serving member of this board. I have been involved with Parks and Recreation basically my whole life. I'd rather be outside than inside. I'm an employee of TCAPS. I've coached since 1980 and have retired because I do have a young son that's quite active in all outside sports, so I know most of the facilities around here. And my oldest son was also involved with most of the outside activities here, and both of them are really outdoorsmen. So being a part of this committee, you know, hopefully that I want to leave something for them. So I want to see the parks be able to be built up where they have something, and my grandkids, if I ever have any, have something.
You in a hurry?
No, I better call my college kid right now. No.
Dave.
My name's Dave Taylor. I was born and raised in Traverse City. I was appointed to the Road Commission a year ago, and in turn was appointed to this committee by the Road Commission, and I've enjoyed my first year. This has all been a real learning. I wasn't too familiar with our parks, but I'm way more familiar than I was a year ago. So, and I enjoy hopefully serving for another 4 or 5 years. Thanks.
Thank you. With the board's permission, we have a presentation regarding the snowball tournament as our next agenda item, followed by the consent agenda, then followed by public comment. With the board's permission, I would like to move up public comment as a courtesy to those in our audience that might want to speak and may have to leave. Is that acceptable with everyone?
Sure. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I now will open the floor to public comment.
Hello, my name is Ross Richardson. I live at 873 Washington Street in Traverse City, and I'm also a Grand Traverse County Commissioner. Excuse me. I'm speaking today to address something that came before the Physical Resources Committee of the County Commission about a week ago. It was brought up by Jason Jones and Kim Moore, and it was a discussion about rules regarding instruction in the pool at the Civic Center. And I expressed myself then to both Kim and Jason, and I wanted to also express it to you folks today, because I believe it's on your agenda, that I hope you won't be too restrictive in allowing people, family, friends to offer instruction to help other people in their swimming techniques, abilities, whatever. I really think that it doesn't represent any threat to the county to have this activity going on. I can't imagine it represents any liability problem to the county. And I also think that lifeguards probably have better things to do when they're at the pool than, worrying about who's teaching whom and whether that's breaking any rules in this place or another. I would hope that lifeguards would be mostly concerned about safety of everyone who's using the pool and the whole pool environment and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Please come forward, state your name and address, please.
Good evening. Chuck Lurchin, 1326 Milliken Court, here in Traverse City, and I am here tonight to air a concern and perhaps even ask a question, if necessary, concerning a traditional and long-standing recreational program in Grand Traverse County, specifically that being the junior baseball program at the Civic Center baseball fields each summer. And when I say we, I'm also talking about Jocelyn Bohr and John Whitcup, former members of the county committee or county commissioner appointed baseball committee. As we're all aware, and of course we're aware, there's been a major change in the structure of that program to whereas who is actually going to put the program on. The long-standing agreement that the county has had with the American Legion Post was dissolved last year. And as former committee members, citizens, I've had several discussions with Jason. I'm not aware if a new user group has come forward to run a junior baseball program at the Civic Center. And I am curious to know, with anywhere from 700 to 900 participants in that program each year, what's going to happen for this year. If a user group comes forward, if one has, if none have, what the commission intends to do with that, and essentially that's the reason that I'm here tonight.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we will go to the next item on our agenda, a presentation regarding the snowball tournament. Good evening.
Good evening.
Would you please state your name?
I'd be happy to. My name is Tim Hinckley. I'm the Executive Director of the National Cherry Festival. And tonight I'm here as a volunteer for the Cherry Capital Winter Wonder Fest. This is the fourth Cherry Fest that's coming up. It'll be over President's Weekend, which is the 12th through the 15th, downtown Traverse City, at Mount Holiday and at the Grand Traverse Resort and Spa. I was here tonight to just give you an update on one of the events that'll be over that 4-day period, and we're calling it the Snowball Tournament, which is going to be out at the Civic Center. We plan on using the ball fields for the Snowball Tournament. It's a co-ed tournament. We hope to have enough teams to where we'll not only be able to use the ball fields for all day on Saturday, February 13th. But if we get enough teams, then we'll do finals on Sunday the 14th. We've been planning this for several months. We certainly appreciate the opportunity and all the cooperation that we've gotten from staff. Where we're at today is, in fact, I just came from a Winter Wonderfest meeting. We've already got 8 teams signed up. We've had well over 50 inquiries. Part of what we've been trying to do is draw teams from out of state so that they would come up, spend their dollars here in the Traverse City area. Hotel Motel Association, the Convention and Visitors Bureau have really been actively involved so that we can bring more things to do, not only for locals but people from out of state to help generate help for the economy. This is my second year in participating in it, and I've acted as kind of like logistics and anything that we can do to help out. The tournament is planning on upwards of 20 teams. We can probably do over 30. We're pretty excited about the fact that we've already got 8 signed up. A lot of times these teams wait to the last second, and I'm kind of anticipating what that that's going to happen again. Where we plan on supporting the tournament is right adjacent to Howe Arena. We have we're calling it a warming tent. It's a place where people can get out of the cold. There will be food there. OPA is going to be supplying all the food and the soft beverages. One of our sponsors is Cox Beverages and Bud Light. We're going to have some beer and wine there. KLT is going to provide live entertainment throughout the day. We'll have some merchandising. Each team will have upwards of 15 people. They'll have, I think, family come. We're really going to be pushing it as just a fun environment for people to come down and enjoy. So I would anticipate anywhere from 300 to 500 people over the course of the day and a half. We plan to start on that Saturday morning at 10 a.m., probably go till 5 or 6, and then depending on how the brackets go, it's a double elimination tournament. Finish up probably 4 or 5 hours on that Sunday.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, Mr. Doran?
Tim, can you help me out? What's a snowball tournament?
That's a great, I had the same question.
What do they do?
I didn't know that much about softball, even though I played it, but it can actually be sanctioned. They have an American Softball Association. This is kind of a little version of it in that it's not as serious, it's co-ed, but this is a 16-inch softball, so it's a little bit larger. We're obviously going to play
Because I was envisioning these 15 people on the side running around throwing snowballs at each other.
That's what I thought, too.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked the question. It did need a little clarification. But the idea is that, it's fun for all ages. We're really encouraging that this isn't, real serious, although I'm sure that there will be some people that want to win. But I think by the reaction we've gotten, people are generally understanding of what it is. But
So
it's a 10-man softball team,
Okay.
co-ed, and we're hoping to have a great time.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Is there preparation of the field? Will that require to be plowed, or you just take it like
I
it is?
think the more snow, the more fun.
Very good.
And Russ?
Yes, can you explain how the alcohol issue is being dealt with? This
Certainly.
is the first time it's occurred on county park property.
Certainly. The National Cherry Festival was able to use, we've got 2 different nonprofits. We were able to go to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. We've been working with the Traverse City Police Department. And we needed 2 licenses to do, one for Saturday, one for Sunday. We've had lots of experience in doing this before, and we got together with Cox. It's just a menu of some beers and some wine. It'll be a $5 16-ounce pour of beer and a $5 6-ounce pour of wine. We will go through, if somebody hasn't had TIPS training, they'll go through the TIPS alcohol training with the Traverse City Police Department. We have people in the hotel motel industry. Most of them have liquor licenses, so they understand the importance of making sure that anyone within the tent has to prove that they're 21 years or older. We'll have the ability to, we're going to ban them so that only those pouring beer will have to look to see that they've been banded, no matter what age. Going through the TIPS training, if anyone has done it before, make sure that this is just for a fun environment. We don't want anyone there over drinking or anything like that. The other thing we're going to make sure is that any alcohol being consumed will be within the tent itself. We'll have volunteers out in the parking lot. We'll have a sign so when you get out of your car, it says, look, there will be alcoholic beverages that will be served and consumed only in the tent, not throughout the county grounds. And we'll have volunteers to make sure that we work and help to enforce that. One of the things that I'd left Jason a note earlier today, the city of Traverse City, because the police department has been overseeing this with us, additionally insured, we don't have information from the county, but I need some guidance as far as making sure that the county is additionally insured. That's any other questions I can help on that, but
I guess that's clarification. The tent is an enclosed area, restricted access?
That's correct. And to satisfy what the police department looks for is that we'll have double fencing around it so no one can hand a beer to somebody else. We'll have a center point where you've got to come in and make sure that we check their IDs.
Thank you.
So are you looking for language for the additional insured?
I just need to know really terms. It's for both general liability and liquor liability.
Yeah.
But the city of Biloxi's tradition does $1 million, and we just write them in.
This is something that this commission has heard presentation from the snowball softball tournament before. One of the questions that Tim had for me today, and I'd like to ask this of the commission now, how much additional liability insurance should this organization have for the county? It'd be my recommendation to go with $2 million additional insured for Grand Traverse County for this event, because it's the first time we've done this event. It's the first time we've allowed, this commission's allowed alcohol to be consumed on our property. It's something, I'm going to need some direction from the board.
Jason, have you spoken with our legal counsel, Bob Cooney, by any chance, and asked what his normal practice is?
The normal practice, and I've talked about other events before, the normal practice is $1 million. But there aren't any other events that have alcohol at them at our facility. And that's the reason for my suggestion of $2 million.
What's the city requiring?
$1 million. That's the same amount, but they also require when we do the beer tent downtown or the Global Wine Pavilion, that's $1 million.
How much more does it cost you to get the extra $1 million?
I don't know.
Not much.
That much?
No, I owned a bar, and your additional $1 million won't be that expensive.
Pardon? Does anyone know what the county now has for liability? I mean, is it $1 million? So we have to be additional 2 or additional 1, would you like?
I would go additional 2.
Total of 3?
Total of 3.
It's in,
No, I don't think, I think that whatever the county's got, but this is the primary policy, so that if somebody does get hurt and it involves alcohol, they'll go after this policy before they even go after the
yes,
county's policy.
This is the transfer of liability
So
from
this
the
is the
county
first
being
$1 million or 2.
correct.
Commissioner Byrne?
I just was kind of glancing over an email that Jason sent us earlier today, and it's the MMRMA. The county has liability coverage through MMRMA with a limit of $15 million per occurrence, and I'm wondering if that coverage it was an email, and does everybody have a copy of that, Jason?
Yeah, everyone has a copy of it. The copy she's looking at looks like this. I'm sorry.
It starts off...
like this. And this is one of the pieces of paper that was on your desk when you walked in, and it was something that I also emailed.
And I can just read it real quickly. It just says, a little background. The county has a liability coverage through MMRMA with a limit of $15 million per occurrence. The county has a self-insured retention, fancy word for deductible, of $75,000 per occurrence. What that means is that the county has assumed the risk for the first $75,000 of each loss. So if the county suffers a $1 million loss, the county pays the first $75,000. And MMRMA will pick up the remainder. And that is for each occurrence. So if 3 people were to be injured, sued us for $1 million, we would be...
But Commissioner Doran, I
So-
understand that, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I just thought I would read that because we were asking how much insurance the county has, so I'm wondering if...
I have a question for Commissioner Doran. As I understand what you said, we do have the $15 million liability insurance. What we want is for the festival to have insurance, be it 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 million, whatever this board directs, so that if there is an injury, they go after the festival's insurance first and the county second. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's right.
Jason?
Later in the email that Chris mentioned, transferring risk, which is what it would be in this case. Transferring the risk simply means the other guy in this, no offense, Tim. I'm reading from this email.
You're the other guy.
You're the other guy in this situation. Assumes liability and pays if something bad happens. So that eliminates, if something bad were to happen, that eliminates the county from even the initial $75,000 self-insured retention. in conversation that I had with Bob Hawk regarding this issue, he mentioned to me that a typical incident involving death settles out at about $2 million. That's another reason for my suggestion of $2 million.
Okay. Mr. Dorn?
I think that's a reasonable suggestion unless it's somehow cost prohibitive, but I think 2 million is a good number when liquor's there.
Is it 2 million or 3 million? Because was it 2 million on top of the 1, or is it 2 million?
2 million.
2 million total.
2 million total.
Okay. May I have a motion for a recommendation?
I will make a motion to recommend that the Cherry Winter Wonderland would secure a $2 million policy for the Snowball Fest.
Is there support?
Second.
Support that.
We have a motion and support. Discussion? Yes.
The policy wouldn't come from Winter Wonderland.
Okay.
It would come from the National Cherry Festival.
Okay, I will amend my motion to state the National Cherry Festival,
And we'll support it
which
as
is
well.
putting on the Winter Wonderfest.
Supported as amended.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same? Motion carries.
You guys putting the team together? Thanks for all of your help. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for your presentation. Next on our agenda, approval of the minutes from December 7th, 2009. Before I entertain a motion for acceptance, are there any changes to the minutes of the December 7th meeting? I only have one, and it really is verbiage, and it's on page 9 of the minutes. It's at the last paragraph. And it says, Nelson and Rudd thanked the commission for their service since they have served their terms and will not be returning. I thought it's Nelson and Rudd were thanked by the commission for their service. So I just want it to be reflective that we were thanking Commissioner Nelson and Commissioner Rudd for their service to the county. So if I hear no other changes, I will entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I approve the corrected minutes as stated.
Is there support?
I'll support.
We have a motion and support. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, additions, deletions, approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions, deletions to the agenda?
I just was wondering, but the gentleman has left, if we needed to add the discussion about the baseball issue to the agenda, but if...
I'd be in favor of that.
Fine. We will put that as item number 9 under new business.
Madam Chairman, I motion to approve the revised agenda as presented.
Is there support?
Support?
We have a motion and support for approval of the agenda as amended. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, conflict of interest. Does any commissioner have any conflicts of interest on agenda items? Seeing none, we will move on to administration. Communication. Positive changes in pool operations. Everyone has on their desk a memo regarding the positive changes that have been occurring at Eastland Pool.
Is that the memo from Edie Gibbs?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Going on to administration, old business, Lutra report, update. I believe that would be
I guess
Kim?
it'll be me. The Lutra report has obviously been implemented and we're rolling on it. In December, several of the Lutra recommendations have been continued and or started upon. The dead zones, we started phasing out in December on the new schedule. They're completely eliminated. We've eliminated the divisions between open swim, lap swim, senior swim, and all of that. We do still have a time where we have adult lap swim, and that helps keep that senior citizen population happy with that, so they know that there's not going to be younger kids coming in. But we've opened up lap lanes during any chance that we can. So that goes with number 3, with not closing the pool during lessons. Consistency in the pool schedule, from the December schedule onto this one, it's fairly close to the same, so that people kind of get the idea that they know they can come in at certain times during the day, and that's going to be a trend that continues. Providing notice and change of schedule. A good example is this weekend there's a swim meet, and so our flyers were up 2 weeks ago, making sure everyone knew that the open swim would be canceled and that the lap swim hours would be shortened. We've shortened the class length as recommended in the Lutra study and as also recommended by the American Red Cross. So we now offer 30-minute swim lessons. We've shortened the swim lesson sessions by putting more in a week. So instead of the swimmers coming once a week for their swimming lesson, we have options where they come once a week, we have options where they come twice a week, we have options where they come 3 times a week. And that way we can get some more sessions in throughout our terms. Scheduling lessons around pool schedules and blocks that ease staffing. I've tried really hard to get homeschool lessons going in the afternoons when we've got all the staff in there for the school groups, and we need, all of the extra teachers to help with those. We've tried to build a homeschool swimming lesson group. It's not coming along as well as I had anticipated, so we're filling that void with private lessons right now. Scheduling lessons to run through holidays and vacations. Over Christmas break, we scheduled lifeguard training and ran that, and we scheduled an aqua camp, which the youth had a lot of fun with that. Scheduling lessons on a rotating basis, I kind of already mentioned that, and with the lessons starting more frequently. We've eliminated registration windows, so right now you can still go in and register for swimming lessons and hopefully find a class. They're starting to fill. We've established a birthday party program, and we've already booked 2, so that's pretty exciting. Special events, the one that you'll hear me talk the most about is our underwater egg hunt. It is scheduled for April 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m., and I'm shooting to have 120 kids there. It's $5, and it's from infants up to age 13. Adults get to go in for free. So that's pretty exciting.
And Kim, could you just back up to your birthday party and just
Sure.
give us a quick little, what it is and what they get and how much it is?
Yeah, I don't totally remember the prices. I know the cheapest one is $85. It's for 10 students. We call it our Seahorse package. And our packages go seahorse, swordfish, and dolphin. So the fish get bigger as the packages get bigger. I don't know. It was fun for me. But with the Seahorse package, it just gives them an hour of room rental, and then they get to come in, and we're just doing them along with our already going open swim times. So it'll just help fill the pool a little bit more during our open swims.
So the pool isn't closing for it?
The pool
it's
isn't
just
closing
additional-
specifically. We're not hiring on extra staff or
Okay.
extra hours. It's just they're coming in when we already have an open swim going. So those are running on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays right now. And the middle package includes a cake and drinks. The third package, we're going to do all the room decorating for them, all the cleanup. It's got a bigger cake. You get more kids to come in, so.
All right. Do we have any questions for Kim on the implementation to date on the Lutra report?
I've got a question.
Certainly, Al.
Kim, I think that the changes have been noticeable and very positive.
Thank you.
Have you received any negative comments or complaints from people?
The biggest one has been, one of the Lutra recommendations was more open swim times. And so the only spot I really had to flex with that this term was putting them in the evenings. With the breakers occupying our pool from 6 to 8 p.m., that leaves open swim starting at 8 p.m. And we're finding it's not used. And so in the spring schedule, I plan on opening that back up for lap swimmers. So it'll be shared with lap swimmers and the water exercise class 3 nights a week. But that's kind of the biggest drawback that I've seen.
Any other questions regarding Lutra implementation to date? Seeing none, Rules Committee update. And
No, there's...
Could I ask?
Certainly.
Not on the up-to-date, to date, but the future implementation, is there any idea about the time frame for some of these? Are some of these going to happen soon and others later?
Well, like number one, the letter of agreement with the Breakers swim team. I'm already drafting that right now. Eliminating pool staff during full rentals and increasing fees to accommodate for increased staff is something that I plan to work on. It came to my knowledge that we don't charge our school groups for the instructors. They just pay the same pool rent fee like that the Breakers pays. So with fees being a topic, I was hoping that would get, we could add that in as we discuss fees and talk about how we want to charge those groups because, you know, right now, currently, we're staffing for instructors for these school groups to come in. So initiating a small retail store is something that budget money was planned for, and so that's something that I look at doing in the next month or so. Creating lifeguard steps in payroll is something that I've already started working on with Human Resources Department. Updating play options for the shallow end. There's New Year, there's budget money, so I'm going to be buying some new toys and some big, large floating mats to help do that. Establishing more community events, that's going to be an ongoing thing. That's one of my favorite things to do. So we've got the egg hunt going. We hope to do a water safety event in June, so those will keep coming. And establishing a program-only registration fee. Again, that'll kind of go along as the fee discussion comes about. And then establishing benefits to the membership. I think that'll kind of go with some of the fees as well. So there's wheels in motions for most of these things.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
I just have a question. It says letter of agreement with Breaker Swim Team, and I'm not aware of what that is and what this agreement is. So if you could elaborate on that.
It's basically just going to outline the services that we agree to provide for them and what we ask in return for them. Some of it comes down to that insurance that they have us listed, and that we set an amount for them on that, making sure that they know that they can only do so many swim meets a year. I can't remember what I put in as the exact number, but making sure they plan that in enough advance so we don't have the hunting and fishing show and a swim meet going on in the same weekend, those kinds of things.
So basically like a contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I have just one, and the discussion kind of brought it to mind. One of Lutra's recommendations, Kim, is for lane markers.
Those are
they coming?
the yellow ones?
Just lane markers, you know, we have for those of you who don't know, there are 6 lanes in Easling Pool, and there is no lane marker between lanes 1 and 2. There is a lane marker between lanes 2 and 3, but there is no lane marker between lanes 3 and 4.
Oh, so you're talking a lane line coming in?
Lane markers, yes. That was a Lutra recommendation, and I was wondering where it is on the list.
Okay. My interpretation of the lane marker was just the signs labeling it better.
No, it's actually
We currently have
in the water.
No.
That's a lane line. That's not a marker, so that's why my mind went somewhere else. But we currently have lane lines, and during lap swim only times, we can, you know, we could go ahead right now and put those in. That would be nice. That's not a problem.
That would be a wonderful...
You know, they're hanging on the wall, just
Yeah.
sitting there, so
You
yeah.
know,
It's,
if I'm not mistaken, for instance, at 4 o'clock I'll be very brief. At 4 o'clock, when lap swimmers come in, they have no lane markers between lanes 1 and 2.
Lane lines.
Lane lines, thank you. But here, breakers come at 6, and it's the first thing they do is put in the markers.
Right. Well, and
So-
also during that 4 o'clock time, we have it marked off for swimming lessons mostly, and we only advertise one lane being available. So,
Chris?
Dave?
Kim?
Yeah.
It says install liability release procedures. Could you explain that?
that comes with, when they come in and sign a waiver, or when they sign up for their annual membership, there'll be a waiver.
Do you have that drafted and
I
something
don't have
that
it
we can see?
drafted yet. I've gotten some examples from Lutra. Jason has gotten some examples as well, and that's something that we're working on, but we don't have a draft of what the counties would look like yet.
Okay. So there's no liability release currently?
Currently, no.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we will move on to the Rules Committee update. And Commissioner Byrne, you sit on the Rules Committee with me, so do correct me if I'm wrong here. We have not met recently.
No.
We have lost Commissioner Rudd, and we did have a meeting date misunderstanding the month before. So we have not met probably in about 2 months. As long as we have no update and we are on the topic of Rules Committee, we are in need of an additional person to volunteer for the Rules Committee. And I, of course, am, you know rules, Commissioner Doran.
Gosh, I'd like to volunteer for that. I have a real problem with 8 a.m. meetings, so is there a
No,
way
that's
to
fine.
change that?
Oh, yeah,
No.
we can change that.
Well, that's fine. We can meet at 9, 9:30, 10, and we generally bring donuts. Jason?
I just want to mention, and Commissioner Maxbauer, you can do it however you'd like. We do have committee appointments later in the agenda, so whether we do them here, whether we do them there, as long as we have them by the end of the night, it doesn't matter. But I just wanted to let you know that those are mentioned on the agenda as agenda items.
Oh, thank you. All right.
I noticed that was a duplicate agenda item. Finally, it would shake out in either one of the areas.
Well, if the board doesn't mind, I'm going to accept Mr. Doran's gracious willingness to...
Coerced.
Yes, coerced acceptance to that, and we will move on to the Scholarship Committee update. And we don't have one. We were unable to meet this month. We are going to meet next week.
We can actually update a little bit. Can I?
Certainly.
Just give a small update?
Absolutely.
What's written in this memo here, basically, is that we have 5 children that have been placed in the Learn to Swim program. And I just would like to elaborate, because to me, if I were to read that and not know anything, I would think there's only 5 children in the program. And what we did is we sent out over 150 or 120 letters to, and what we did is we started with the families that are in the band. We sent out letters to them in regards to that we have the opportunity to sign them up for swim lessons here at the Civic Center free of charge, and we would provide not only the lesson but transportation as well. We only had 5 families respond to that. So we have now moved on to the public schools. We sent a letter to the public school. We've gotten a request from the public school to change our wording and our target group, and at our next meeting we will do that and get that letter back out for spring lessons. So,
Thank you very much. That was very good. Next on the agenda, new business, the budget report. In our packets, we have budget information.
And the budget information this month is somewhat limited. What I have provided each of you is the revenues and expenditures associated with each of the activities within the Parks and Recreation budget. In the cover sheet, I mentioned the Parks and Recreation budget is the 208 budget. So if you hear me refer to 208, that's kind of the way we refer to it in the office. At the time of the printing of this packet, we hadn't had any expenditures against the 2010 budget with the exception of one payroll. So I don't have a lot to discuss in showing you the changes in this budget. But I'm happy to go through just some highlights to mention to familiarize the commissioners with the budget that we have.
Please go ahead, Jason, and after you do that, I would like to hear from the board if there are any changes to the way the budget information is presented that they would like to see. Go ahead.
And I'm just going to start on the first page. You'll notice the upper left-hand corner it states, or excuse me, the bottom footer, you'll notice it says 208 Revenue, 751 Parks and Recreation Commission. Just a couple of highlights on this sheet. Fund balance forward, which is line item 40100, so the first line of the budget, shows a $104,953 move forward into the 2010 budget of fund balance. Fund balance is essentially funds that we have not, expenditures that we have not utilized from previous years. Transfer in is the funds that are transferred into the 208 line item from the county general fund. Next page, 208 revenue, 752 Civic Center. State grant, you'll notice that is a $4,000 grant that we've received for several years from the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs related to a summer band program that we've hosted at the Civic Center for the past 2 or 3 seasons. Rents are rents of the Civic Center, so this is essentially rents of the meeting room, not necessarily, these are separate from the rents that are associated with Howe Arena that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Concession receipts, we do have an agreement with a concessionaire for the Pizza Wagon, which is a snack bar located in the main lobby of the Civic Center, as well as a portable unit that she utilizes during the summer season near the baseball field. So we do have about a $9,000 revenue coming in from that each year. Next page, 208 revenue, 756 Civic Center pool. This is a revenue related to the pool, obviously. And you'll notice some of the notable things here is a local grant from the Grand Traverse Band. That is holding the place of the grant that Commissioner Max Bauer received last year associated with our swim lesson program, our swim lesson scholarship program. You'll also see pool fees. Those are revenues coming into rentals of the pool, memberships, etc. The next item, revenue of Power Island. Power Island's kind of an interesting one. We essentially have one major line item for revenue, and that's rents. Rents are scheduled to be at $4,500. One of the challenges we may have after the budget was created in 2009, leading into the 2010 year, the health department contacted me and mentioned that we need to either eliminate one campground or one campsite on Tower Island, or we need to become a licensed campground. This is something that I've got a meeting, and I'll be talking to the health department in regards to this to find out the criteria that we have to meet to be a certified campground and to determine what the best route is for us. Is it to become certified according to the health department, or is it to drop back to 4 campsites? So, Al, do you have a question?
Yeah, who brought that to your attention, that you were one campsite too high?
The county health department.
And okay, so they were doing some audit, or they just somebody happened to be there and noticed?
Somebody happened to be there and noticed, I believe. Dan Thorell from the health department contacted me. Actually, he and I talked about it while we were discussing the pool issue.
Thank you.
And because of that, if we choose the option to eliminate one of the campsites, that may affect that revenue for 2010. Next item, 208 revenue, Twin Lakes, 759 Twin Lakes. This one's very straightforward. We have the rental of Twin Lakes budgeted at $50,000 for 2010. This is the rent associated with the dorm, the lodge, and we now have a pavilion that was part of the Access to Recreation project. And when we discuss fees, and this is something I'm going to talk a little bit more about in my report, we need to establish a fee associated with the pavilion. We've received several calls since the pavilion's been finished with people wanting to rent it for weddings or for family reunions and things like that in the summer of 2010. Next item is revenues for Howe Arena, 761. And as I said in my cover letter, the 208 designator designates all parks and recreation, or designate parks and recreation funds. Within 208, we have several different activities that are typically associated with different facilities that we have, as we've discussed, Power Island, Twin Lakes, etc. We also have a line item an activity for this commission, for the Parks and Recreation Commission. And at the Civic Center property, we have Howe Arena broken down into its own activity. We have the pool broken down into its own activity, et cetera. So just discussing specifically Howe Arena, we've budgeted for $38,000 revenue related to rents of the arena, such as the hunting and fishing show, the RV show, the flower and garden show, et cetera, which are the predominant rental of our facility of Howe Arena. This happens over the course of about 16 weeks, beginning the weekend of St. Patrick, or second or third weekend in March. So we'll be looking forward to the hunting and fishing show coming in March. The next page is, we're getting into these are expenditures now. You'll see at the bottom, 208 expenditures, 751 Parks and Recreation Commission. Not a lot of major issues on the first page you're seeing here. This is the expenditures related to the Parks and Recreation Commission. One of the things I do want you to notice, and it's not as noticeable on this activity as it is some of the other activities, but personnel obviously is one of our largest costs associated with each of these, and you'll see that as we continue through. The next page, 752 Civic Center. Again, lion's share of this activity is personnel at $72,941, with our total budget for this activity being $126,640. Just a point of clarification, there are no utilities listed here for whatever reason. And I imagine this is a historical reason. I've been here for 3 years and I don't know how this was established. Our utility bills for the Civic Center, for the pool, for Howe Arena, and for all of our facilities are billed to the facility management department. So a portion of our controllable costs are paid directly out of the facility management budget. And I don't have any control over how those are being paid. So in fact, I don't even see those bills on a month-to-month basis. So just to make you aware, you won't see any utility costs associated with any of the line items or any of the activities here.
Does the Parks and Rec Department pay a portion of the utilities to facilities?
Facilities pays those out of their budget.
So Parks and Rec Department does not have a budget for utilities, and we do not pay.
We do have telephone.
Actually, it's charged back to Parks and Rec, if I remember my budget book. It does go to it is under the Facilities Department, but there's another section under Facilities that says Parks and Rec.
Right, within the facilities budget, ours is 208, theirs is listed as 471. Within the 471 budget, you'll see, for instance, Civic Center for our budget, 208,752. You'll see that in facility management's budget at 471 is the fund, 752 is the Civic Center within their fund. And that's where you'll find the utilities.
But you don't take out of 752 to put into the...
Not out of this budget, no.
Right. So is that the same for all the county departments, sheriff's facilities and everything else?
I haven't delved into any of the other departments. I assume so, although I cannot be certain.
Yeah.
Comments from the commission. Is there anything that you would like to see presented differently? Is there anything additional that you would like to see? Is there anything that you don't want to see? Kevin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Jason, thank you. I know this is just the first attempt to give a broad brushstroke overview of the budget. You've got to start somewhere. I appreciate starting this process. So while this is detailed, I also respect the challenge that you have in managing what appears to be 14 different budget centers on all these pages that we're seeing. So just a couple of brief comments. Could we see the relationships of past year's costs? And by that, so I'm seeing you have the 14 different budget centers and the expenditures and the revenues. Can we see how those expenditures and revenues relate to past year? Obviously, are they going up? Are they going down? Where? Why? How?
Absolutely.
Great. And then finally, as you just mentioned, apparently the big picture look, the facility costs are not in here. So we're responsible for a lot of funding, not only in the personnel costs, but the overhead costs of the facilities. And then, of course, to be aware of the big picture, then we've got to be aware of the facility costs. So I know it's asking a lot, but in order to do our job, to look at the big picture.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other? Commissioner Doran?
Is there a separate capital improvements budget or
Yes.
plan?
Yes, there is. Can,
As I see capital outlays only listed for Maple Bay,
It should have a zero, I think that's
and
got a zero.
it is zero, but it's a category.
Capital improvements are similar to utilities. Capital improvements for our facilities are typically handled through the facilities management department, but I'm happy to get those for you.
Does this commission make recommendations to the county board on an annual basis for capital improvements?
In the past, and Russ, correct me if I'm wrong historically, this commission hasn't had any involvement with the budgeting process. For this commission to ask for a budget, Chris, that was earlier this year?
I was the one that asked for budget information to be put into our packets every month. We do this at Commission on Aging. We make budget recommendations, and I know the county board values this board's recommendations. And so I felt it was important to see what our expenditures were, what our revenues were, so that we can make judgment calls on those recommendations. Obviously, we're not good, and actually, the Parks Commission, by state statute, can spend money. We actually can go out and purchase property as long as we have the money in our budget. So I just felt that it was important as we decide on where our money goes, where our priorities are, that we get this budget information.
This is extremely helpful. I'm just curious, though, what's the mechanism for saying, well, we should build a gazebo at this park or
Now,
pave that?
I'm going to ask Bob to weigh in on this. Bob, I don't know how long you've been on county planning, but if memory serves me, didn't the county planning put together a capital improvement plan?
Exactly. The law was passed, and it makes it mandatory for the Planning Commission to make a capital improvements every year. And it's also now all local governments, townships are required to do the same thing. And so we're initiating in Acme Township our first one this year. But I believe the Planning Commission, this is the second year for theirs.
Yes, and I thought, that's what I seem to recall. Jason, perhaps you could ask the planning department for a copy of last year's information, and we can distribute that to the board?
Great.
Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to state that it's basically this commission's responsibility to help the staff determine where we should be going budget-wise, and we need to do this based on our long-range master plan. And we need to determine, which we haven't done in 7 years now, what's important, park by park by park, for facility improvements, maintenance changes, et cetera. And that's part of where we need to go this coming year, in my opinion, with our strategic planning and master plan update.
So if we get our master plan updated, then we
should have it broken down park by park.
And we go on an annual basis to the Planning Commission and say, according to our master plan, we'd like you to fund this capital improvement, or get the whole, is it 7 years, Bob, that they do it for?
Excuse me?
Is it a 7-year capital improvement plan?
That may be part of the strategic plan, but the capital improvement plan is a yearly thing. I don't know how many years ahead. The master plan usually has a window like that. I haven't been on the CIP, the Capital Improvement Committee, and so the specifics of that I can't answer right now. What was your question again, though? Restate that, because I can find out. Whether it was a 7-year window or something?
Right. There is a capital improvements plan that the Planning Commission adopts. Is it just for a year, or is it for a longer period of time, and how long is it?
And I, for some unknown reason, have a summary sheet of a 5-year plan for all county buildings in my packet. I carry it in my board book. It is dated 2006, so it's almost over. but I do know there's information out there.
Is that the
So
one that
Jason, if you would look into that for us.
Is that the one that mentioned, the one you have there, is that the one you mentioned, that mentions the replacement of ice machines?
Yes.
Okay, that's the one that I'm familiar with, that I've worked with, the facilities management has worked through and included Parks and Recreation facilities. So that may be the same document from the Planning Commission. It's just, it was created in 2006 before I was here, so I haven't been a part of that capital improvement planning process.
Bob?
It seems to me it makes sense that it would be a 5-year plan or something like that,
Yeah.
because that dovetails with master plans and things like that.
Jason, you'll bring that back
But I'll
to us?
find out for sure.
Okay, anything else for Jason on budget? Next, committee appointments. Number 1, NER Board. I see from our packet that Grace Rudd is interested in reappointment. And I will tell you that I think there's no finer person to represent Grand Traverse County than Grace Rudd. My question is, and I don't know the answer to this, the NER Board, the liaison to the Parks Board, is that required to be a Parks Commissioner? If it's not required to be a Parks Commissioner, I think Grace would be an outstanding selection, and but I would ask her to provide us with periodic written reports. Jason?
Within the packet, I mentioned, maybe it's not clear enough, that we actually need to make 2 appointments to the NER Board. One being Grace Rudd. Grace Rudd did step down as the liaison, or the representative from this commission, but they'd like to bring her on as an additional commission, or as an additional advisory board member. So that's one action.
So Jason, is that up to us, or
Yes.
is that up to the NER Board?
That's up to us.
All
To
right.
appoint that person.
Okay.
And then we also need to appoint a liaison from this commission. Correct. So we actually need 2 appointments from this commission to this.
I'm open for volunteers.
I'm very definitely interested in that committee.
Okay, Bob? Thank you very much. And is there support?
I support
For Grace?
For Grace's appointment, yes.
All right, we will appoint Bob and Grace.
Do you need a motion for that?
The chair can make these appointments.
Okay.
Done. Rules Committee, done. Thank you, Commissioner Doran. Resolution Committee. Add a resolution committee to
I'd like
committee
to-
appointments.
I'd like to make some, give an explanation. At the Physical Resources Committee on January 13th, Commissioner Wheelock made a motion that was supported by Physical Resources to create a committee made up of 3 Parks and Recreation Commissioners and 3 County Commissioners, myself and Bob Cooney, to discuss Resolution 4277. At the Maryland, was it the November meeting? Either November or December, Grace Rudd made a motion to vacate Resolution 4277. As far back as October. This board voted unanimously to vacate that resolution. And I've discussed this with you, the discrepancies between Act 261, the law that establishes or allows counties to establish Parks and Recreation Commissions. And
Jason, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. Has everyone read the resolution that was vacated? The one where it says the chairman of the Marion Island Committee is supposed to be, okay, everyone's read it. Go ahead, thank you, Jason.
So in order to clarify the role of this commission and to shore up the discrepancies and the ambiguities between Act 261 of 1965 and the Resolution 4277 that established this commission, the Physical Resources Committee made a motion to establish this committee to discuss this issue. And Commissioner Max Bauer was right earlier in mentioning recommendation of the budget from this commission to the Board of Commissioners. But with an act, and this board has that power within Act 261. But Act 261 also allows the County Board of Commissioners to establish rules for this commission. And within that resolution, the county board only provided 6 items that it charged this commission with. So the closest thing to budgeting is all final decisions regarding policy, building construction, and budget will be made by the County Board of Commissioners through the appropriate committee or board. So that puts budgeting squarely back in the Board of Commissioners' court. But Act 261 says that this board can make that request. So this, what we're trying to do with this committee is eliminate the gray area between Act 261 and the resolution that creates the County Parks and Recreation Commission.
Okay.
Can I have some clarification? When I looked at 42, Act, that was before we elected commissioners. If I remember right, the townships supervisors were the county commission. And then they went through a governmental change where we were outright electing commissioners. Would that act then have been voided when we changed a government unit to that? So would we even need resolution? And then afterwards, when we started the regular commission that we have now, was the act of the first group of county commissioners that were elected, then put people on this board. So if we look at the history of it, would we even have to vacate it? Because I did, after I looked at the dates, I did try to do some comparison. That's when this county was run by the townships. That was before we actually outright elected commissioners. And when we started electing commissioners, we changed the government policies for this. And that's when the county commissioners, first of all, put this committee together after they were elected.
Commissioner Doran.
Have you looked at anything into that?
I know that this was established, you're right, this Resolution 4277 was established before the Board of Commissioners, as it stands now, was created. That's some historical information that I was told. But Resolution 4277 states that the Parks and Recreation Commission is created under Act 261 of 1965.
Okay.
So the state statute is older, even older than the resolution. It's older, so if we're going to follow...
Jason, can I interrupt?
Sure.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a minute. As I understand what you said, and you will beg my pardon here, I was not at Physical Resources on Wednesday. This was a motion by Commissioner Wheelock, approved by Physical Resources. This has not been presented to the county board. This is not something that we should take action on at this time until the county board takes action on it as a board at the end of the month.
Okay.
So, certainly,
could
Jerry.
you find out, Christine, once we did elect the board, was there anything else back in the history that then we, organized this Parks and Recs afterwards?
I certainly will try.
Because it's, again, if you look at it, I've heard different stories that it was disbanded and then it was formed again. So it's just
Kevin?
to that.
Following, just echoing what you had just suggested, I was going to request the same thing that Jerry's advocating is advice from legal counsel, and maybe Peter was going to recommend that as well. So it appears, Madam Chairman, you've requested this go to the full Board of Commissioners, and obviously civil counsel is going to weigh in when it gets to that point about what the proper procedure is. So that was my question to you, is what has Bob Cooney and civil counsel advised and how to proceed properly?
They're actually on this committee. They've been appointed to this committee, and Bob agrees through a memo that I've provided to this commission before that there are discrepancies between 4277
Well, there certainly are.
and Act 261, and that those should be discussed.
Commissioner Doran.
Jerry, the copy of the resolution I have doesn't have a date. What, could you tell me what date that was
Do
adopted?
you have
The resolution, that original resolution...
4277, do I take that as
It was
1977?
1977, yes.
And was it the Physical Resources Committee, were they trying to create this committee on their own, or were they recommending that the full Board of Commissioners create this committee?
The recommendation was made on January 13th to create this committee. And
The recommendation
it should-
to the board?
Because it went to Physical
Yeah.
Resources, it should go through the full county
Yes, it's a
commission.
recommendation to the full board.
It was my intent for us to have a committee. It was my intent to have a committee established here. So after Physical Resources, or after the full board approved that we could hit the ground running. The Physical Resources Committee, the original motion was to have an answer to this issue by April 1. So it's important that we get this going.
So you'd like some appointments conditioned on the full board following that
We
recommendation?
can certainly do that.
And this is something the county has sent out a sheet asking which one of the county commissioners are interested in this, so this is something they're preparing to appoint as well.
Okay, I'm looking for volunteers. Commissioner Byrne, Russ, and I will volunteer myself.
Great.
So we have 3.
Great.
Do
All
double
right.
hats that, the county commissioner on it too, and Parks and Rec?
I don't know.
Because how many county commissioners are there if you nominate another 3? Would that
Would you
violate the Open
like to,
Meeting Act?
if
It's for a safety issue, yeah, I mean.
you know,
I
if
think
you would
that-
like to take my place, that's
then we need a
perfectly
commissioner. All
fine.
right, I can do that.
All right,
Yeah.
you've got it. Next, meeting times for 2010. Parks and Rec Commission.
Within our board rules, we have to, based on our board rules, we have to set our agenda, or our meeting schedule for 2010. And in your packet, we've included that calendar based on previous motions by this commission to meet on the third Thursday of each month here at the commission chambers at 6 p.m.
All right. Let's see, do I need a motion for this?
I believe so.
Didn't we already pass a motion
I thought
accepting
we
the
did.
meeting dates?
I thought we did last month.
In the November meeting, that was
All
already.
right.
Within our rules, though, it does state that we need to make,
I'll make this quick. May I have a motion accepting the meeting schedule?
I
Jerry?
motion that.
I support it.
Support. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries.
thank you.
Scholarship Committee, meeting dates. Commissioner Byrne, any preference?
That we continue the, I'm going to say it's the second and the fourth
Second and
Tuesday
fourth Tuesday,
at
Rules Committee?
9.
isn't it?
Rules Committee, we...
Scholarship.
I'm sorry, Scholarship, thank you.
You're right.
Second and fourth?
Second and fourth Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Fine. I'll support that motion.
And do we need to have anything in the motion that if there is no need for a meeting that?
No.
Okay.
No, we can cancel if there's
Okay.
nothing to discuss. Discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Rules Committee. Mr. Doran, do you have a preference on a date and time?
No, not really. When did you normally meet? What day?
We typically met on the third Thursday at 8 the third Monday at 8 a.m.
Let's meet on the second Friday after. I'm getting confused.
Well, the Monday's okay. I would ask your indulgence to move it to
Certainly.
like 9 o'clock or something.
That would be fine.
All right,
Third Monday at 9?
Third Monday
Work
at
for
9
you?
works for me.
all right.
Okay.
Commissioner Doran, is that a motion?
That's a
Commissioner
motion.
Byrne, is that support?
Support.
Discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Strategic Planning. Jason?
This is,
You work with Paula Segala on this schedule?
and this is something that Paul is available on the second Tuesday of the month, or excuse me, on the first Tuesday, the second Tuesday, or the second Thursday of the month. Marion sent out a survey to each of the commission in 2010, so several of you have not seen this survey. And three of the current commissioners that sit on this board now responded to that survey, and each confirmed their availability for the second Tuesday at 6 p.m. in the evening. This is something that this board should discuss. Strategic planning is something that this entire board should be involved with.
I cannot do it at the second Tuesday at that time.
Light and Power?
Light and Power.
Okay.
I can't do the second Tuesday either, so.
All right, we need another date. Suggestions?
second Thursday.
It's good with me.
Thursday works, 6 PM.
That's what we've, in the past, we've done.
And this is on the third Thursday.
Correct.
Okay.
So force you guys to see.
I'm going to start reciting who's on first here in a minute.
I'm going to see you every day.
Okay, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, well, before discussion, you need a motion and a second to initiate discussion. I just wanted to comment that last year, we discussed this issue, and we had agreed, the consensus was, you had asked for 6 meetings, we had agreed to 4 meetings. And now we're open-endedly asking for, another 12 meetings? We have no agenda, we have no goals and objectives. Where are we going with this?
This has been Paula comes to our meetings simply as a facilitator and moves at the pace of this commission. So the strategic plan is a very crucial part, or is a very crucial document for us to move forward on a day-to-day basis. So she's moving at the speed of the commission. And if this commission would like to be more formal, I'll ask Ms. Segala in her facilitation to make it more formal, make a more goal-oriented situation. In the past, we've limited the meeting to 90 minutes, and we've at 90 minutes we've always stopped. So if this board wants to do it in a different manner, set up some goals, some objectives for itself, I'm happy to be a part of that.
Commissioner Doran?
Could you or Paula or both come up with a suggested
Absolutely.
schedule and with a finite number of meetings?
Could I make a suggestion?
Certainly, Commissioner Byrne.
I've been involved in some different strategic planning, and one thing that I find with our board here is sometimes an hour and a half isn't enough time. That brainstorming, and we get on to something, and then the meeting is adjourned. Perhaps a one-day workshop where we are in a meeting for a day, and we have a very structured agenda with objectives of what we are going to outcome at specific times so that we are on task. And, perhaps it be a weekend day, but we get the strategic planning done in a day versus another year of 1.5-hour meetings.
I'll just respond and comment. I echo Pete's and your, we're looking for guidance and recommendations from Director Jason Jones and Paula Segala on how to be most efficient with everyone's time. And you're right, it's very important. We need to focus on this, but what's the most effective way to move forward and stick to it?
I would tend to lean towards one longer session. A board's job is to set goals and objectives for staff. And it's staff's job to carry out those goals and objectives, how best they see fit. So I think if you lay it out that simply, I think we can do it in a day, and I don't think it's going to take a whole day.
I would just sort of echo it, maybe there's so many new faces here, maybe before we even set the date, we should have a quick review at one of our commission meetings, so the other people can be caught up, where are we, where were we at, before we set it. I don't think I don't think it'll take an entire day. But if we start with all these new people, it might take a half a day just to catch them up. So we could maybe have a quick review before we set the date.
Perhaps doing that and adjourn our typical board meeting and then spend 45 minutes.
Yeah, a half hour on a review on what we've done.
I agree.
Okay. And you will check with Paula on her schedule and give us some optional dates and times?
Yes, we will.
All right. Next on the agenda, number 4, Leelanau County fees. That was me, and that is a misinterpretation. What I meant by Leelanau County fees, I was talking about outside of Grand Traverse County fees. We have not taken a look at our fees for anything since I have been on this board. and I've been here for 3 years. And I think it's time that we review our fee schedule. It may be too high, it may be too low, it may be just right. We may be subsidizing Leelanau, Antrim, Benzie County. We may not be. They may be subsidizing us, but I really do think that we need to take a look at that. So in our packet next time, Jason, I would like this board to receive fee information, and please put a discussion of our fees on next month's agenda. And that way, if the public would like to weigh in, they're aware that it's going to be coming up. Any other comments on that from the commission?
Look forward to it.
Okay, number 5, pool private lessons. That would be you or Kim, or?
For me? All right. We've had some questions regarding whether or not to allow private swim lessons taught by non-Parks and Recreation staff at the pool. Kim saw this happening with a former employee, a current high school swim coach, doing this after hours, or during public swim time, and sent me an email asking, or telling me that she told the swim coach that it was an unacceptable behavior at the pool for liability reasons and for revenue reasons. I contacted Dennis Aloya, and I told him that I agree with Kim's comments, that we don't have any control over how the lessons are being taught, and in my opinion, it increases our liability, and that it is competitive because we offer private swim lessons to the public. And on December 9th, Dennis passed that information forward to MMRMA, and on December 9th, MMRMA came back with a letter. It looks like this, and it's included in your packet. And on December 9th, once I saw this letter, the line that stood out to me is, we suggest that lessons be provided by trained, certified, and/or licensed individuals working through the county or an approved community organization, such as the YMCA, with appropriate levels of liability insurance. And the key words to me there are trained, certified, licensed, and liability insurance. Based on this letter on December 9th, I directed Kim to stop all private lessons being taught in the pool until this issue and this policy, or a proposed policy, could come to this commission. Unfortunately, when this happened December 9th, this happened after our last Parks and Recreation Commission meeting in December, and because we changed the dates of our meeting, we've almost gone 2 months with no policy in place. I acted, and I directed Kim, based on the opinion from MMRMA, saying that unless we can ensure that the person teaching had liability insurance and they were certified or trained, that we should stop this practice altogether. One of the situations that I'm not comfortable with is putting our staff in the situation where they have to judge whether or not someone, or ask or investigate while they're guarding on deck, whether or not someone's certified, trained, or whether they have liability insurance. Moving forward, as our staff handled this, other people came forward that were teaching lessons in the pool. And Commissioner Max Bauer asked whether or not this is the right thing to do. And based on the research I've done, and in talking with MMRMA, and most recently I spoke with them in an email that you have on your desks, and it was based on some questions that Al Larson asked. I sent Al's email directly with those questions to MMRMA. And you'll see the email from MMRMA. It's dated 1/20, so I talked with them and I received this from them yesterday. And here they reiterate the need to have certified licensed individuals with levels of liability insurance in order to transfer liability from the county to the person teaching the lessons. That's the first issue that I have with this. Second issue I have with this is our department is consistently under scrutiny to increase revenues. This is an area where Kim had hoped to develop a program in order to increase revenue by having us teach private lessons. By having our staff teach private lessons, we can ensure that the staff are certified, that they're trained, and that they have liability insurance. Third, in early 2009, we worked with Lutra Aquatics to have the Lutra report done. And Lutra suggested, or gave us his policy and suggested that for the same reasons Kim and I had concerns, liability reasons and the elimination, or the allowing competition for one of our potential revenue streams was an issue in the pool, and they provided the policy that they utilize in their pool. Not to mention, we hired Kim for her experience, and in no other facility has she worked in have they allowed private individuals to teach lessons during public swim times. My recommendation is that this commission makes a policy that prohibits private lessons from being taught by private individuals during public swim times unless the lesson is taught by a parent or guardian, unless the lesson is taught by a parent or guardian. That's my recommendation to this board, and that recommendation comes with risk management, our MMRMA stating each person that teaches, in order for us to transfer that liability, needs to be certified, trained, and they have to carry their own liability insurance. Unless these people are our employees, we'll never know whether they're certified, whether they're trained, or whether they have that liability insurance. Certainly someone can say, I've got this training, I've got this training, I've got this training. But at that point, unless we do a background check on that person, we can't trust their statement. And that's not something that I would want to put our staff in that situation. Also, this will create competition for a possible revenue stream that we're consistently under scrutiny for. And Lutra, who we trusted enough to bring on and make recommendations how to change management procedures in the pool, gave us a suggestion that's very similar to my recommendation. As well as Kim's experience, she's never seen this before, and I strongly feel that my recommendation should stand, that we prohibit swim lessons by private individuals during public swim times unless that person teaching the lessons is a parent.
Well, I'm going to weigh in on this. First of all, Jason, I want to say that I'm saddened that you have taken MMRA's letter to this extreme, and I do view it as extreme. What they say in their letter is for-profit teaching. And Kim, I understand Jason directed this policy, but either clear direction to your staff has not been given or it's been ignored because it is being arbitrarily applied. And I'm going to give this board several examples. Since this policy has been implemented, 2 high school girls who were friends, who occasionally go to the pool and show each other swim strokes, were stopped from doing so. Yet on December 30th, a certified triathlete coach was permitted to show and teach 3 young ladies in the pool. And I was in the locker room when the 3 young ladies were in there, and I asked them. And it was absolutely clear that the young man was coaching. He was holding the girls in the water, showing them how to position their arms, and he was not stopped. Do I think he should have been? No. And the reason why is one of the young ladies was his girlfriend, and he was trying to impress his girlfriend by showing her and her 2 friends some swim stroke. Commissioner Wheelock at Physical Resources said that he feels that this policy, as it stands right now, is intrusive. Commissioner Hooper stated that he was not real wild about this particular policy. And I think the reason Commissioner Hooper might have said that is because when my husband and I were dating, we would take Commissioner Hooper's children to the pool with my nieces and nephews. And my husband, who we were not married at the time, was not the children's guardian, and we would spend dates showing the kids how to swim. Under this policy, my husband, who taught me to swim 5 years ago, could not have taught me how to swim. He certainly wasn't my guardian. We were dating at the time. You know, I can imagine his face when, if I would have said, well, I'm sorry, no, you can't teach me how to swim unless you marry me. I mean, what a lovely start that would have been. You know, I don't mean to make light of this. To me, this is not a laughing matter. Under your policy, big brothers cannot bring their little brother through the Big Brother program to the pool. Big sisters can't bring the little sisters to the pool and show them how to swim. Or just show them how to do the silly clap, the butterfly, you know, and have fun. A parent has been stopped from showing their children how to swim. If you have a policy, first of all, you need to have a clear policy. It has to be applied equally and fairly, and it hasn't been. I do object to the way this is at this particular time. Do I object to you stopping for-profit coaching at Easling Pool? No. But I think you've taken it to the extreme, and I think there are many, many people in the community that agree with me. The other thing I want to say, Jason, is you have to understand that in this community, not everyone can afford private lessons through the Easling Pool. Not everyone can afford to rent the lane. As a matter of fact, not everyone can even afford to use that pool, but everyone pays for it. Every single resident in this county pays for it. The only time in the history of Easling Pool that everyone has been able to use that pool was spring break of last year, when my husband came up bounding from the basement and said, you know what, why don't you see if you can't get the county to open up the pool during spring break for all the kids. They can come in and get rated by the guards on their swimming ability. The parents will know, and everybody wins. You know, it's a bad year. Everybody pays for the pool. It's a win-win for everybody, and it was a win-win for everybody. And I sincerely hope you'll do it again this spring break. That being said, if liability is an issue, last Saturday morning, kids and instructors in the water, there was no lifeguard on deck. That's not a risk, but me showing my neighbor's child how to swim is a risk. And I know there was no lifeguard on duty because I arrived at the pool Saturday early for lap swim. There was no guard on deck. I don't know why. I don't know if it's state law required. I don't know if it's not state law required. But if that's not a risk, please explain how this is a risk. I'd like to know how this is in line with creating community, with our mission, our vision, our values. I don't think it is. You allow masters swimming 2 mornings a week. They have exclusive use of the pool. They don't pay for lanes. They are coached via email. They have sets, they have times, they have strokes they're doing, drills that they're being given. They are coached.
They've been given till June to decide if they're going to become an official Masters swim team and pay rent as the Breakers do.
Now, I want to say one more thing about Masters swimming. For $35 per year per swimmer, they are covered under U.S. Masters liability insurance, and they have not been required to do that. All of this, you know, I mean, all of this is going on, and you want to stop neighbors from taking the neighbors' kids and teaching them how to swim or showing them a swim stroke, and I think it's wrong. Anyone else?
I would like to speak.
Mr. Byrne?
Yep. I've done a lot of reading through all of the emails in regards to liability. I've been involved in several different aquatic facilities. And some of the concerns that I have, and I have some questions for you, Kim. My biggest concern is I think about, I know 7 different individuals that have been utilizing the Civic Center for many years. They work with mentally handicapped children. 2 are employed by the pavilions. They bring 2 children to the pool and work with them because there is not an instructor who is certified to work with handicapped children at the Civic Center. They do not have the opportunity to take a swim lesson like a regular child. There is a young gal that I know who is blind. She has a neighbor who takes her to the pool. Her mom pays the neighbor for her time, not for her expertise, but her time, to take her daughter to the pool. Under this motion that is being suggested, she wouldn't be allowed to take her. I think about if I paid a babysitter to watch my children, which I have done many times, and my babysitter was on the swim team, she works at the Great Wolf Lodge, she is not certified by Red Cross, but Ellis and Associates, she's taken my kids to the pool. She's worked with my daughter. I can't imagine that myself being a community member not allowing my babysitter to bring my kids to the pool and swim, because that would be considered a private lesson. My son has worked with friends in the pool and enjoyed it more than working with Mom, even though I am a competitive swimmer and have been for years. I understand I know of an individual here who has a business. He does only private swim lessons. I don't know that he does them here at the Civic Center. Perhaps he does. He does private swim lessons for young children, and doing a private lesson for 4 or 5 children during open swim time where he's getting paid by those individuals and he's not paying for use of the facility, that's questionable. But if members of the community are paying to use the pool during open swim, I don't think it is up to our department to decide whether or not they can give each other tips, whether they can help each other out with their swimming. I guess what we would need to do is define what a private lesson is and have a very clear, concise, no gray area definition. I think about what we are paying our lifeguards to do and to be policemen of whether or not someone is doing a private lesson. I guess I could go on and on. I do have a question, though, for you, Kim. Do you have more than just the young, the age group swimming? I think about this coaching incident where you had high school girls and you had Brad, who was working on stroke development, focusing specifically on competitive swimming, and I looked through the brochure and there is not any class that focuses specifically on competitive swimming.
Not a class, but we could do a private lesson with our staff. We've got Ben Myers, who's been a competitive age group swim coach for a number of years, who could provide that private. Ron O'Brien, John Horton, all of those would be very, very more than capable of providing that kind of a private lesson. We don't currently have a class because we don't have a demand for it, which is why we would need to have something like that fall into the private lesson category. But we do have staff qualified to teach a competitive.
Okay, another question I have in this is, have there been incidences, in one of these emails I was reading that the concern is that we don't want an instructor yelling at kids or throwing rubber duckies at them. In my experience at the pool, when I have seen people working with, I saw a gal last week working with a girl who was in, I think she was autistic and Down syndrome. It was kind of a blend of different things, and I had talked to her in the locker room. I couldn't believe the compassion of this woman and the patience of this woman. And I'm just wondering, how many incidences have there been with these individuals who we've stopped now in the last 6 weeks? How many complaints have there been in regards to their behavior towards these students that they're teaching?
Well, I'd like to clarify that the email was, Jason had asked me to email the MRPA Aquatics Committee and see what common practices throughout the rest of the state. And so those comments are from from them. So it wasn't anything that necessarily we had, but it was something that another pool had had. So that's what those are.
Well, I'd also like to just express that in all of this documentation, one of the things is this report about how much liability we have and that this is a liability risk, and that one of the things you can do is to eliminate risk. And unfortunately, in what we do in Parks and Recreation, there is no way to eliminate a risk. There is no way to eliminate that when I walk out this building, I am not going to fall down the stairs and twist my ankle. And if we, as a board, are going to look at this for the pool, we need to look at this for every single one of our facilities. We need to look at the private lessons that are being taught on the ice rink on a daily basis during open skate. We need to look at the private coaching that is going on out on the baseball fields in the Civic Center, on the basketball courts, out on the track. We need to look at all of those if we are going to focus on the pool as well. So, some of my concerns.
Commissioner Doran?
I agree with everything that both Chris and Christine has said, except for one thing, and that is, I'm glad you took such a hard position and a strong position. I appreciate this information. It's very enlightening. It's not persuasive to me, but I think that that's your job, is to make a call, and people aren't always going to agree with it, but I think you did what you thought was right, and so I commend you for that. But the policy itself isn't necessary. The policy itself is overly broad. The policy itself is really contrary to the whole atmosphere and what we're all about. We are actually in the business of increasing risk. We've got a pool. If you went to your risk consultant, he'd say, get rid of the pool. I mean, that's his business. He doesn't want you to be doing things where you might make claims against your insurance policy. We're there to let people reasonably and safely increase their risk. And, in none of this, there's an implication if you increase your exposure or something that it's unsafe. But none of the information pointed to any specific instance where there was a danger. I mean, we have to do things not by guided by limiting our exposure. We have to do things by eliminating safety issues, by making a safe environment for these activities. That's what I see as our goals.
Can I interject? I think one reason why the hard line was taken, and it's come up, is because it's really hard for the lifeguards to be watching and seeing a private lesson going on, and for them to be put in the position to find out if that person is profiting from it or not. And I think that's why the hard line was drawn. So if we had a policy that could reflect something like that,
Well, I wouldn't be adverse to a policy that prevented paid or even perhaps group lessons. And while I may be oversimplifying things, I mean, if you go walk up to the guy and you ask him, are you paying for this, or are you receiving money for this? I mean, 95 or 8% of the time, they're going to say. They're not going to lie to you, and you can tell them that that's the policy. But this policy, I think, is really not necessary, and it's way too broad.
Jerry?
Well, I was going to sort of echo that last comment. I think there's a difference between showing and instructing. And it's no problem to show people how to swim if you're just assisting, like the girlfriend-boyfriend scenario like that. But paid instructing, I would be against. Because, we've been hearing for years about we need to increase our revenue. And yet, there's no policy against it right now for paid instructing. And again, as a person who's coached for years, I've always had my, feet stepped on by so-called experts from the outside that thought they knew what they were doing. And if, and I'm almost to the point, if we see instructing like that, I think it's up to the lifeguard to step in too. So, but again, I would be totally against stopping people from showing people how to swim, because that's what the pool is for. But instructing and getting paid, I'd be against it, because it is then hitting our revenue stream.
Bob, did you have anything, or I thought I saw your hand up?
Well, yeah, it was initially was thinking just like you stated. However, as long, I was at WSI for 30 years, almost, and so I wouldn't want to have the I wouldn't want to charge somebody for using a pool when I couldn't command an area. So if they're trying to teach, and yet they have to deal with all these kids diving and using the pool, you can't, if it's free swim or open swim, anybody can swim anywhere.
Yes,
so it's
exactly.
kind of really chaotic, and so I don't know, I would be hesitant to charge somebody for giving lessons in an area where I have no control over my ability to teach a good lesson and follow through and stuff like that. So.
However, there are people doing that, though.
Yeah, right. And so, anyway, if there's any reservation, I would agree with you. I would have reservations somewhat about somebody using the pool and charging, but at the same time, because of what I just described, I'm less certain that should be a requirement, so.
Commissioner Clark, then Commissioner Byrne.
Yes, I just wanted to indicate that from my perspective, I'm not personally involved in swimming lessons in any point at this stage of my life. My kids are all grown and gone. The county paid over $20,000 for an expert to make recommendations to us on how to manage and run this pool. He specifically runs and manages pools himself, and in his email, he indicates some severe concerns. So I think that there needs to be some consideration of what his recommendations are. We saw him out as an expert. We paid him a lot of money. His opinion's been asked for, and I just want to make sure that opinion is respected.
Commissioner Byrne.
Along the lines of Commissioner Clark, when we brought Dave Rowland in, he was brought in for recommendations. One of the things that I think we as a board need to keep in mind is that our pool is unlike many, many pools in this country. Our pool is subsidized by our taxpayers. It is a county-funded pool. It is not a private for-revenue pool. YMCA's are private for-revenue pools. The pool that Dave Rowland runs is a private for-revenue pool. So with that being said, the other thing with the Civic Center is that we are one of the only pools of our kind in our area. We serve over 80,000 residents. If somebody decides that they don't want to work with Ben Myers or Ron, if they would like their child to work with someone else, they don't have another facility to go to. If they feel that they are going to pay somebody to work with their child, or if I decide that I'm going to pay somebody to help me work through an injury that I have, truly one of the only facilities we have is the Civic Center. I'm thinking of all of this here, and I think if somebody comes in, is working with an individual, they're being paid to work with that individual, they pay the fee to use our pool, both of the users do. They sign the liability waiver that everybody else signs. What they do in that pool, as long as it's not affecting any other user of that pool, I don't see a problem with that. I understand the revenue loss aspect of it, but I don't know that we have that many instances that we're coming into where the county has been losing revenue because we've got 34 coaches on deck or 34 swim instructors during open swim and nobody's signing up for swim lessons. Our swim lessons, from what I understand, are starting to fill up. People are utilizing those swim lessons. We don't necessarily have every aspect covered when it comes to aquatic therapy, special education with children, things like that. And we as a board need to keep in mind this is a county-funded pool. It is not a public for-profit pool. We need to be able to reach as many of our community members as possible. And if a community member wants to teach private lessons, does it in an open swim area where they have to deal with kids jumping on top of them, needing to move because there are 5 lap swimmers that came that day and they need to leave because there isn't availability for them to do what they're doing. I think we need to keep those things in mind.
Commissioner Larson.
Yes, I do not support any restrictions on private lessons. If the pool were a private entity that had been built by a corporation, then I could see, similar to the fact that it's really not appropriate to bring your McDonald's bag into the Burger King and eat it there. You can stop lessons from being taught there. However, the pool is not a private entity, as Chris mentioned. It's a public pool. It's owned by the people of Traverse City. And so restricting them from using their pool to teach lessons, even for profit, doesn't bother me in the slightest. In a free market economy, I believe that we, as a Park and Rec department, should provide better lessons where people want to participate because there are more kids, the instruction is better, it's a high-quality thing that we can control the area, just as Commissioner Carstens mentioned. He's exactly right. It's very difficult, typically, in a successful pool to teach swimming lessons during open swim. I'm not concerned about the revenue loss. I think we can be better than them. And the last point I'll make is that I would rather have our lifeguards focusing strictly on whether there is safe behavior going on in the pool and not have to worry about whether the lessons are being taught, whether these are lessons or not, or what the relationship of the student to the teacher is, or whether they're being paid. To me, if the people come in and pay their money and they're acting safely and appropriately, then that's fine with me. I advocate for no policy.
Commissioner.
Just very briefly, I want to weigh in. First of all, I'm seeing it from a couple of different angles, but I want to really back up and say, way to go, Kim. You blew the whistle here. You're asking for a policy. You found that one doesn't exist. And so I want to get back that that's an issue, as well as minimizing risk. Then I just wanted to summarize. I know I'm hearing a lot of great key points, but it all comes back to I'd like to create a policy. And I believe we have a role, fiduciary responsibility to minimize risk and liability to our county taxpayers. So, I support what you've done. I don't, I'm glad you blew the whistle on this, and I know our next agenda item is policy creation. So we need to come back at this. And on that closing note, you've dealt with some of your colleagues. Is there anything that creates that fine line? A couple of our county commissioners has said, this is prohibitive to the residents. Can we strike that fine line and create a policy? Have you exhausted those efforts? Can you come back and help us with that policy draft so that we can work through it?
I'm hearing different things. I'm hearing that some commissioners want no restrictions on the policy. I'm hearing some commissioners want a restriction on simply for-profit teaching, and I'm hearing that some commissioners want everything banned. So, I guess the easiest way to ask this question is a show of hands. Who wants everything as far as teaching in the pool, with the exception of a parent or a guardian, banned? No one. Who wants for-profit teaching banned? I'm just trying to get a show. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bob, is your hand up or down?
No, it's down.
All right. And who wants no...
Can we back up, Chris?
I'm just trying to get a feel for it.
Okay.
And then we'll...
Yep.
And I'm not... This isn't a motion. I just want to know. I mean, obviously, if there's an interest, no interest in banning everything, then we're not going to talk about that anymore. Now, it seems to me that we're going to talk about either banning for-profit or banning nothing. So, Jason, you had your hand up.
You moved beyond my point. I'm comfortable.
All right. Mr. Doran.
I'd move that we adopt a policy that prohibits paid private lessons to be taught by individuals or companies during public swim times.
Is there support?
Second.
Discussion.
I would ask whether there should be something added to that, such as except with permission of the executive director or the director.
Well, you know, I
Are
would,
there times when there are? I just don't know enough about the operation of the pool. Are there times when paid lessons during open swim time is recognized?
Mr. Dorn, I'm not going to support your motion, and the primary reason is something that Commissioner Burns said, and that is when special needs children come in, sometimes they have to have a special person as an instructor, and we don't necessarily have the staff that has that special training.
I think his exception, though, would cover that.
Yeah, I agree.
This exception covered, yeah.
So
It wasn't in the motion, but I'm offering it maybe as a revised motion, except with permission of the director.
In a case.
So that when we
but-
had a special circumstance like that.
Okay.
I would like, if we're going to do that, then I would, well, I mean, I think of many different situations, and I think it's too broad.
Commissioner Dorn, when you say except with permission from the director, I would prefer that there's specific criteria. In other words,
Thank you.
someone comes in and they're required to have liability insurance. Someone comes in and they're required to have, I don't know, blonde hair. You know, I mean, I think rather than just say permission from the director, I think we have to have
Thank you.
specific criteria.
Yes.
Madam Chairman.
Madam Chairman, wouldn't that then be a part of the policy that Kim could come up? Because I really don't want to have also our lifeguards be cops.
I don't either, and I'm just not in favor of this at all.
So with that, I would like to see, everyone usually knows the people that are paying. And you know what, I don't want the lifeguards to come through everyone and say, are you paying, are you paying, are you paying?
I don't
But
either.
I also think that we should state that it's a policy that, no, you're not allowed. But yet again, maybe come up with policies on how the guards act, how this, on policy that comes up, who can be accepted into this.
Yes.
And that would be then through just, taking this motion first and then waiting for our policy, which is coming up next, policy creation, to handle that.
I would like to back up, if this passes, and I will tell you right now, I'm not going to vote in favor of it, but if this passes, I'm having a senior moment. I can't remember what I was going to say. I need to write things down.
Could we hear the motion again?
Please.
I'm going to add that phrase, or do you have it?
They adopt policy that prohibits paid private lesson during open swim time, except with permission by the director.
I think I know what I was going to say. How are we, or how is staff going to
Monitor.
enforce this at this
Yes.
particular time if we don't have criteria? I am not in favor of enforcing this unless we have specific criteria. Again, if this motion passes.
Can I ask a
trust to their
question?
good judgment.
Okay, Commissioner Byrne?
Well, I was just going to ask a question. It seems to me that the scenario that happened was there was a gentleman doing a private swim lesson, and he was told that it was unacceptable practice and he needed to stop. And I'm wondering what was unacceptable about what he was doing.
He was profiting.
So the unacceptable part was that he was profiting.
He was profiting.
But his behavior was not unacceptable? Okay. And he stated that he was profiting?
Yeah, I
Okay.
flat out
Now,
asked him.
have there been other instances where people have been stopped and they were not profiting?
Yes,
Okay.
since then, because we took that hard line to say
Okay.
no private lessons.
And
unless
with
it
this
goes
motion-
through the Civic Center.
And with this motion that is on the floor, those who are not profiting can continue status quo?
As I understand the motion, yes.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
Madam Chairman, just
Yes.
a comment that was my point initially, is to hopefully draft a policy. So I wonder, recommend a friendly amendment to draft a policy rather than to support a motion relative to policy which appears to not been formalized yet. The motion on the floor is to adopt a policy, not
And we
to
don't have
draft.
one, yeah.
Well, in effect, we're creating one right now, as I understand it.
Well, we have a motion, so we need to vote on that motion.
Yes, we do.
And that motion is to accept the policy.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Kern,
No.
Karstens,
No.
Clark,
Yes.
Doran,
Yes.
Larson,
No.
McEllier,
Yes.
Wiskowski,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
three no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes.
You didn't count me. I haven't voted yet.
Chairman, only when there's a tie. Chairman votes only when there's a tie. Is that correct?
That's what we've done.
Not on the county board, but
I'm new here.
So we just voted a policy to adopt, we just voted to adopt a policy that we don't have, is that correct?
yes,
Okay.
we are
We just established policy.
We are prohibiting for-profit teaching, but not for-profit teaching. That's what I heard.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that at our next board meeting, Kim has a policy drawn up for us in regards to this motion.
I second the motion.
But I'm not finished yet, because what I want to put in there is something about, and please help me with wording, specifying what for-profit is. Because if somebody is, I think about somebody bringing an individual who, like my babysitter, bringing my kids to the pool. She would no longer be able to bring my kids to the pool because she's babysitting and being paid.
That's the challenge of policy. You have to look at all unforeseen hypotheticals.
Or,
Yeah, excuse me, I think I know what you're saying.
Bob?
Is she being paid for babysitting or for teaching?
well, that's
Babysit.
it, because if a lifeguard says to her, "Are you being paid for this?" and she says, "Yes," so
Well-
that's, I guess, where,
We're going to have to.
and there's a big gray area here
We're
with
going to have to
this,
trust
with this
staff
motion.
to use common
Okay.
sense. Commissioner Doran?
Oh.
I think the way that was worded is there has to be paid private lessons.
Paid private swim lessons.
Paid private, yes, swim
Okay.
lessons.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. We have another, wait a minute.
Is that how it's written in the minutes, Marilyn? The motion is that it's paid private swim lessons.
Motion,
Yes.
Adopt a policy that prohibits paid private lessons during open swim time.
I would, that needs to say swim lessons,
Okay?
I think.
Well,
That takes a change in the motion, though.
So, any
I
lessons.
think that can be a friendly change, can it?
I support that amendment.
all right. Okay. Are we done? Or are you making another motion?
I just would like to see a policy, and
I'm
And
sure
so-
we can direct staff to let us review. I think Commissioner Doran's motion was extremely clear, but certainly, let's see something in writing at our next meeting.
no problem.
Is there a motion then to draw up a policy, or is that withdrawn?
I will make a motion that a policy be written by Kim Moore, our aquatics director, for our next meeting in regards to paid private swim lessons by non-staff members of the Civic Center and county parks.
Is there support?
I support that.
And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, policy creation.
This is the item that I put on the agenda. I created this based on the MMRMA's letter from December 9th, and my interpretation of that letter. guess let me back up. What I'd like to discuss in this issue has nothing to do, the issue at hand has nothing to do with whether we allow lessons or what we allow. It has nothing to do with this situation, but this situation is a good example. According to MMRMA, the way I understood the letter on December 9th, it says, we suggest lessons be provided by trained, certified, and/or licensed individual working through the county or an approved community organization such as YMCA with appropriate levels of liability insurance. The issue that I'm proposing now is, as the director, I have no authority. I spoke with Dennis Malloy about this, and as the director, I have no authority to enact policy. But the way I interpret this letter is, when we receive this, is what you're doing now is increasing your liability. My concern with this is if this letter, said clear as mud, that, or clear as can be, that our liability is increased by allowing private instruction, I have no basis to stop that private instruction. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because if I'm made aware by MMRMA that there's a policy, or that there's something happening that policy needs to be made, I have to allow that because I can't make policy. I have to allow that to continue until this board meets.
Jason, there is a solution, and
then that's what I'm asking for.
okay. If you receive something that you view as urgent, that needs immediate attention, you can always call a special meeting or ask to call a special meeting. I certainly would make myself available if there is something urgent where the county is at risk. And I can't imagine any other commissioner not willing to do the same. Has anyone else got any? Commissioner Doran?
I think that you do have authority, Jason. You're the director of the Parks and Recreation Department. If there's a policy that's been adopted by I think it's the county board really that adopts them, but I'm a little unclear on that still. But if there's a policy down, then you got to follow it. But if there's no policy, you make your best call. You operate, and you operate on an ad hoc basis when things come up. You tell your staff, if this comes up again, do it like this. This is how you handle it. I mean, that's just part of your job. I don't know what policy really is. I think that you are constantly creating policy, and at the next level down, Kim's creating policy. I mean, you don't need any kind of delegation of authority to create policy. It's in your job description.
Anyone else?
Madam Chairman, I thoroughly echo Commissioner Doran's statement. It clearly says in your position description, and that's why I applauded Kim's efforts in blowing the whistle, that basically Kim said, Mr. Director, we have no policy on this. I need your assistance. And your position description says you are empowered to, and we trust and respect your abilities in that position to develop and implement policy, as it says here. But of course, because you're also part of the chain of command with this commission, then you've got to run it through the commission as well, too. So I think what has transpired, Kim sounded the whistle. You brought the need for a policy towards this board. We tried to bang one out quickly, and we're going to see it come back, and we'll all concur. And maybe there's other policies that are necessary as well. I see in your position description the strategic planning is also, so you are empowered to strategic plan and create policies, develop and implement, but of course, we want consensus of the board.
I think there needs to be, constant communication between staff and the board as you find a need for a policy, as you feel, maybe you need it to ban bubblegum blowing, inside the Civic Center because it's...
Well, there's no gum allowed.
I mean, for whatever thing, but, and it changes past practices where food has been allowed, and I don't know, I'm just giving you a for instance. Certainly communicate with the board, run it by the board, but at the same time, if there's something urgent, if there's something that needs immediate attention, don't hesitate to call a special meeting. Is that helpful, Jason? Jerry,
Some
I'm
degree.
sorry.
Yes.
Next time I'm
I know,
going to
so
sit
that's-
on the end so I can see everyone.
Or in the middle there, yeah.
Yeah.
What I do see in here, it says developing and implementing new procedures. You guys have done all that with the Lucha report. What Kim has done with the pool is new procedures. The second line says and policies. So if it comes to, if it comes to that emergency thing and you need to set a policy right there, then bring it to the board, or then we have the right to change it. And, what we just did, tweak it a little bit. So I do see that right there, that we've already done all the implementing of procedures, and you have the right to change the policy, then bring it here. And I think what you did was correct.
Okay.
Jason, is that helpful?
This is my question. In this situation, I saw this letter, and I acted as conservatively as possible by eliminating this practice, by putting a temporary policy in with the intent of bringing it to this commission at our first meeting. My making policy in this situation, my authority, my ability to make policy in this situation was questioned. What I would like from this commission is I would like support, that a motion of support that I have the opportunity to make policy when the situation arises, such as this, then knowing that policy would then come to this commission. Jerry, I appreciate you telling me that we did it the right way. And in the future, in order to minimize risk, I will act as conservatively as possible until this board can meet. Because there's no reason for me to allow the county to take on additional unnecessary risk. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a motion of support from this commission to make it clear that I can enact a temporary policy in matters such as this.
I don't think this requires a motion, Jason. I think what this board is saying, what this commission is saying, is use your best judgment. If you think that something is urgent, bring it to us. If it's not urgent, we'll deal with it at the next board meeting.
And if there's a question
If
in
there's a
regards to
question,
a policy, we do an emergency
You
meeting.
can email us, and individual commissioners are welcome at any time to contact you. I don't know anyone that would hesitate in asking you a question. Is there anyone? So I really think that use your best judgment. If it's immediate, call us. We'll meet. If it's not immediate, email us. We'll ask questions, put it in the packet, we'll discuss it at the next board meeting. It's basically what we do at the county board. Mr. Doran?
Yeah, I think you just what you did in this circumstance, that's what you should do. Make your best decision with some thought, some common sense, and if you're worried about it, come to the board and have them make a policy at the board level.
Number 7, NMC parking.
Can I just back up? I'm thinking about what Jason is asking of us, and Jason, if there's going to be a policy that you're going to put in place that isn't currently in place, would it be appropriate to ask that we as board members are made aware of that immediately?
Well, I think that's what I said, was
Okay.
email us, and then if we have questions...
Email us that
we
here's the
certainly can
policy,
contact
here's
staff.
why, this is what happened,
Certainly.
this is what yeah.
Mr. Doran?
I respectfully disagree with that. I don't
No?
want to micromanage any part of this.
Okay.
I want to set, as Russ said, get our master plan and our strategic plan and give them the broad things, and I really don't think it's our role to be that involved.
Well, I wasn't suggesting micromanaging. I was suggesting, for instance, if he does create a policy and a board member has a question, they certainly are entitled to ask that question.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe that's what I said.
I would agree with that.
All right. Number 7, NMC parking.
Could I ask a question first?
Certainly.
This resolution, we adopted this policy, but this 4277 resolution says all final decisions regarding policy will be made by the county board through the appropriate committee.
Correct.
So does this now go to a county board?
Well, 4277 has been vacated And did the Board of Commissioners
I will-
also concur yet?
Not yet.
Okay, just the recommendation of Parks and Rec, okay.
I will certainly pass on to the Board of Commissioners what this commission has recommended for policy. The Board of Commissioners is certainly entitled and can change what we have recommended,
Okay.
as I understand it. All right?
But
No, I'm
you're right,
keep-
Peter, there's a conflict there, and that's why the commission unanimously voted to vacate 4277, recommended.
Number 7.
I may be able, if you give me just a moment, I may be able to provide some clarification to Pete's question. It's going to take me a moment, though. If we want to revisit that, that's fine.
Well, you can just maybe tell me later.
There you go.
Sounds fine.
Number 7, NMC parking.
This is kind of a unique issue. NMC contacted me, you received your packets on the 14th, I believe. NMC contacted me the 13th, and I kind of slid this in with the anticipation we may have to address this. Last fall, when NMC started, they had record enrollment and didn't have enough parking on their campus. They ended up utilizing our lot for a month and a half and paid us $1,650, which for a month and a half lease of 110 parking spaces in the southernmost lot, or the southern main lot of our Civic Center parking lot, comes out to $10 per space per month. On January 13th, as this packet was getting ready to be sent out, NMC contacted me and said, hey, we may need to utilize your parking lot again this semester up until basically the withdrawal deadline, until class sizes even out and the students that aren't going to be there have withdrawn and whatnot. When this packet came out, I was supposed to have an answer by NMC of whether or not they needed that Friday, so Friday the 15th, I believe is what it was. And on Friday the 15th, I received an email saying, we don't know whether or not we're going to need to utilize your parking. We're going to let you know next Friday. So tomorrow I should receive some, because today is head count day at NMC. Tomorrow I should receive some indication whether or not NMC wants to or needs to utilize our southernmost lot. And this is a practice that we've done before, utilizing 110 spots, which is about 2/3 of the southernmost lot at $10 a space. So this is kind of I guess, I don't know whether we need to table this or if this needs to just be an information piece that in the next few days I will be discussing, or I may be discussing, whether or not NMC wants to utilize the Civic Center for overflow parking. Their use of our lot causes minimal, if any, conflicts with parking at our facility during the course of their day.
Did you develop a contract with them? I can't remember back in the fall when we were discussing it before.
I had a contract developed with them. The only issue that needed to be negotiated was the cost per space. But before we had a chance to even get to the negotiation stage,
they backed out, right, okay.
But after the fact, we discussed $10 per space. And in my conversation with NMC, I threw out the figure of $16.50. And when I talked with Kathy McCall about that, who was my liaison in regards to this issue, she said her comment was, that's really close to what we had planned. $16.50 is fine for us.
I've done a little bit of research on this, Jason. I contacted Brian Crow with the DDA, and I got, he was with the DDA, and the most inexpensive parking fee on a surface lot in this, that's run by the DDA is $24.16 a month, about $24 a month, and that's if you buy an annual. There are many other counties, and one of them was just in a county newspaper today. It's called County News, and it's Gwinnett County, which happens to be in around Atlanta, Georgia. And I'll quote here, it says, for Parks and Recreation, Norwood Davis, who is the person who's speaking, said the committee is considering ideas such as parking fees, user fees, and outsourcing different aspects of park operation or maintenance. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking NMC for a fair market price for our parking lot. Last Friday night, I left the Civic Center about 5 o'clock, and the south lot was full. The whole facility was full, and of course it was hockey. So there is an impact, or will be an impact, to our park users. NMC wonderfully is experiencing record enrollment. I think it's great that so many people in our community are using our community college. But I also think it's fair that we get a fair market price for the parking. Other opinions? Jerry?
Now, with that contract, is it listed the time?
It is, the time is listed.
So it is not the full
I shouldn't say that. I can't say
24
that.
hours,
Certainly,
correct?
if it's not listed, we can certainly list it. When NMC uses our lot, they do not use it on Fridays.
Do they use it
So
just in the morning, till
typically
1
the
o'clock,
morning,
2 o'clock?
Cars will start arriving 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they'll start transitioning out around the 3 o'clock hour. And I'm not going to say all of them, but a vast majority are out by 5:30.
Are they using it on the weekends?
No.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, deja vu, we had the same discussion, lengthy, a couple months ago, as you already indicated, Jason, and I recall the same great brainstorming, thinking of the minds. We had some key points that are in the minutes, I want to say October or November minutes, about prices and maintenance and taxpayer costs and how we can equitably share those costs. And then the commission passed a motion directing you to draft a policy to bring it back to the board. So we need to help you with this. I'd like to revisit that, those minutes, look at those numbers, draft a policy so we can get this and make sure we're sticking to the policy.
Well, can I ask a question? First of all, we do have new commissioners on our commission. Do we even want to lease the lot? I have not heard from the new commissioners. Are they in favor of considering this proposal from NMC?
Seems like an excellent revenue opportunity.
Mr. Doran?
If we have unneeded, if we have surplus space and we can make some money that goes to Parks and Recreation, I don't see why not, especially when it's NMC. I mean, if it were, Arby's or something, maybe it would be different.
Mr. Carsons?
I agree with these gentlemen. I don't imagine that if we raise the price, I have a concern if raising the price is going to raise the cost of student fees and things like that, then I have a concern, because I would like to see as many people have opportunities for education at the lowest price, and so that's my only concern. So,
Okay.
is that enough?
So, what am I'm hearing that we are going to permit NMC to use the parking lot.
Yes.
Okay. Now, at what cost? How, above market value, at market value, below market value?
What I'm thinking about when we're talking fees, this 2410 that you had come up with is
Well,
for
that's based on the DDA surface lot annual parking.
And that's 24-hour access to that lot?
I have no idea, but I bet Mr.
Because we're
Doran
looking
does.
at about 6 to 8 hours, 4 days a week. I think $10 is a reasonable.
Commissioner Doran?
Well, office space, for example, will be a lot more downtown than it will be out by the Civic Center. And the DDA has got a lot of, actually, it's the automobile parking system, has a lot of costs. I mean, they have meter maids and the policing and everything, which we don't really have, so.
Good point.
I'm thinking $10 or something close to that might be equitable.
Well, if we can get 16, let's.
Did they say that they would take 16?
In my conversation with them, the figure that I came up with was very close to what they came up with. I'm assuming it was within $1 a space.
And you
That's
said
simply
around
an assumption
$16
on
a space?
No, I told them $10 per space.
Ah.
You know, I like to see the 10 just basically because they're college students. They're not workers who are making a salary doing the DDA.
This is faculty.
It's faculty.
Oh, this would be faculty?
They make a lot of money.
Oh, believe me, I know that in education.
$3. Professors make a lot of money.
No, not here.
And just as to let you, this fee is paid by NMC, it's not paid by, just to clarify, it's not paid by the individual people parking there.
Also, I'm assuming that they're parking, the staff is parking over and using the Civic Center lot because to make room for parking for students.
Correct.
That is correct.
So if that's the case, then I agree with Mr. Doran.
All right, I will entertain a motion to move things along. So we can give our director direction?
I would like to make a motion that Jason moves forward with this, presents us with the policy that he drafts with all of a contract that he drafts with them, just bringing it to the next meeting for us to look at, but that we give him the go-ahead to do this. But I don't know what kind of specific wording.
With the addition of adding the days of the week in the contract?
Yes.
I heard that from...
Yes, okay.
Definitely.
I will make a motion that Jason drafts a contract and works with NMC. In that contract, specific times and days are noted with the $10 fee per space per month. And
All right, is there support?
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Orientation for new commissioners.
On the second note, that maybe, Jason, you could contact the city. Looks like a perfect place for another parking garage.
Jerry, I've got enough controversy. Orientation for new commissioners. This is an item I wanted to bring up for discussion, and if the commission cares to make a motion, so be it. I'd be happy to do it. Last year, when we had new commissioners, we did an orientation at the Civic Center regarding all of our facilities. Russ and I have had an opportunity to sit with Pete and Al and discuss some of the history of the Parks and Recreation Department and the issues we're seeing now. And unfortunately, Mr. Carson's joining us.
Unfortunately, Mr. Carson's joining us.
No, Commissioner Maxwell, let me finish.
I couldn't help myself, you just let yourself in there.
Mr. Carson's joining us came too late to attend that meeting. So I'd like the commission to have a discussion whether they'd like to have an orientation, whether they'd like to have a day-long orientation, just kind of a brainstorming idea.
I will leave that to the new commissioners.
Coordinate.
What have you done in the past? What's your recommendation? What has worked for you in the past?
I've only done orientation with new commissioners once. Maybe Russ could give a better history. And the one time I did, we rented a van, drove around to several of our properties with Parks and Recreation commissioners as well as new county commissioners. And we did that last year, so a year ago this month. Russ, would you like to?
It has been done in the past. Not necessarily to the extent you did it last year, though.
Are all of the parks listed on the website?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, I think that on my own, I can visit them. That wouldn't have to be part of it. And the ones that I haven't been to already. And so,
Jason's a great tour guide.
Thanks, Chris.
It was very nice to go to the parks and...
I think the four of us could fit in a car, and if you just set up a time and take us around to a couple, three.
Yeah, and then as he took us, he could also then talk about issues that have arisen relative to them and that we need to think about or become more knowledgeable about.
Okay.
All right. Number 9, baseball. Commissioner Byrne, you asked to have the discussion?
I just felt that since we had community members that came in and asked some questions, perhaps those questions could be addressed in front of the board and perhaps answered.
Commissioner Doran?
And I was going to ask maybe at the next meeting, before these folks came up and raised the issue here, I was going to ask for a report, because I know that there's a question about who's going to operate the, can you fill us in, Jason?
Absolutely.
Today?
I'm going to try and give you an abbreviated version. When, in the late 40s, early 50s, when the Civic Center was originally the fairgrounds, there was an agreement struck between American Legion, it may have been late 50s, there was an agreement struck with American Legion that allowed them to, or that they would build, I believe, the grandstands at the new fairgrounds, and allow them to run a baseball program at the Civic Center, utilizing the fields there in perpetuity. And they were supposed to, or they were allowed to use those grounds for free. Several years passed, and eventually, at some point, some unknown point, the County Parks and Recreation Commission started charging the American Legion fees for maintenance of the fields. To the best of my knowledge, in 1994, American Legion kind of reviewed the lease with the county and said, hey, we're supposed to utilize these fields for free. And so there was some discussion about some possible lawsuits and whatnot. The agreement, as far as I understand it, was in 1994 that the County Board of Commissioners would create an American Legion VVA baseball committee. So this is a committee of the Board of Commissioners to operate youth sport or baseball at the Civic Center property. Because this committee was appointed by the board, the American Legion VVA baseball committee was able to, or fell under the county's insurance policy. And when that board was established, the Parks and Recreation Director was put on that board ex officio, non-voting member. If you flash forward to 2008, 2009, 3 of the members of that committee were here tonight: Jocelyn, Chuck, and John. And John, these folks and a couple other members of the board brought some issues to me in regards to how the meetings, how the league and how parents were being treated, how negatively that was happening. Doing some research, we looked into it and found that the county basically had absolutely no control over anything involving this baseball committee because the director was an ex officio member. And for several years, they kind of acted on their own accord with no Open Meetings Act, no FOIA, several violations that, because they were a county commission or a county committee, they were subject to. That also raised some questions about the management of some funds. It's raised questions about the treatment of parents. It's raised questions about some other legal issues that frankly put the county in a pretty negative spot with liability. So the county looked at the agreement from the agreement was 1957, I believe. They looked at that original agreement between the county and the American Legion VVA, or American Legion, and it said that the county, either party could dissolve the agreement with 60 days notice. So earlier this year, Chuck, probably must have been May, I believe May, the county commission said, all right, we're going to give here's our 60-day notice to dissolve this committee. And you guys are more than welcome to continue running baseball in the future at the Civic Center as your own independent committee. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Sitting here in January, we don't know who's going to run baseball at the Civic Center, if baseball is going to be offered at the Civic Center. The American Legion Executive Board is going to meet January 26th, and the current Vice Chair, Chuck, is Greiner the Vice Chair of American Legion? Mark Greiner is the President of American Legion right now. They're going to have an executive board meeting on January 26th, and shortly thereafter he wants to meet with me to discuss how they would like to offer baseball at the Civic Center for these 700 to 900 youth baseball players.
So your indication is that they do want to do the program this summer?
My indication is that they do want to. I will also suggest, and I've got some preliminary research done, but I'm also going to suggest that the county put in place stricter standards about how we rent ball fields. Right now, last season, American Legion Baseball operated as their own independent league, and they weren't privy to American Legion's national standards. So the history of this commission is Larry Butcher, the gentleman that ran American Legion Baseball, the on-site supervisor for this baseball program through American Legion, would often come to Parks and Recreation Commission and say, I'd like your approval to shorten the base paths, I'd like your approval to lengthen the base paths, however he saw fit for the next crop of players coming up. Well, that led to problems with Little League, for instance, utilizing our fields. Little League couldn't run an official tournament in our league because their base paths weren't the proper dimensions. And they weren't dimensions, and American Legion wasn't following national rules, they weren't following national field standards. To be honest with you, I don't know what they did in terms of background checks, or any other type of screening process, or any type of certification process for umpires, any type of parent training. There were a variety of issues that came up, and these are a variety of issues that we should address for our teams.
Jason, what do you think of the idea of, first of all, letting the commission, you said the meeting is January 26th, where and what time is the meeting, so commissioners can go if they choose, and after that meeting, perhaps you, myself, and Jerry can meet with Dennis, and we can discuss, perhaps from Dennis's view, what this board needs to take a look at. I can't imagine anybody wanting hundreds and hundreds of children to not be able to play baseball.
Can I answer that?
Yep. Certainly.
I'd be happy to have that meeting, but I'd like to have that meeting after American Legion comes to me and says...
after the 26th, that's what I
Well,
said.
their meeting is the 26th. I'm not sure when Griner and I will have a chance to get together to hear what he's proposing. You know, if he comes to us and says, we're gonna have our field coordinator become a certified youth sports administrator, and we're gonna follow National Alliance for Youth Sports, sporting guidelines for kids and parents, and we're gonna follow the national standards for American Legion Baseball, you know, it may not be an issue.
My concern, Jason, is only that it's January, and we're running quickly out of time. And if there's something that the county administrator wants this board to do, then we need to do it. If there's something that he wants us to address, then we need to address it. And there may be nothing. It may be, you know, I just don't want this to fall through the cracks at the speed of government. Commissioner Byrne.
I'm new to this American Legion baseball. I've done a lot of reading of what's been transpiring, and I don't know all of the history, but I think about our strategic plan. I think about our mission statement, and I'm wondering, is this an opportunity for Grand Traverse County to take over youth baseball? And would our director, what are your thoughts?
Well, that's a very interesting point, and that is something that we've been struggling with our strategic plan. Do we want to be a parks department as we are now, or are we going to truly be a parks and recreation?
Well, and I'm thinking this is a golden opportunity
specifically
for
with
us.
baseball. We've kind of been a go-between what American Legion wants and what Little League wants. And oftentimes, there's been a couple times that Little League, so not the American Legion program, but Little League, which is a totally separate organization, has asked us to take over baseball. And there's been times that we've been asked by some parents from American Legion if we would take over baseball. Operating a baseball program is something that our department certainly is within our realm, and it's something that we would be able to guarantee certification from coaches and whatnot. Myself, you guys hired me, I'm a certified youth sports administrator, so understanding things from volunteer aspect all the way up to administration of a league is certainly something I can handle. The problem, though, is we don't have equipment. It would take an investment from the county to purchase equipment, and it would take an investment of staffing. We could hire, I've thought about this prospect, and Jocelyn has already asked me about this. We could do this with a seasonal staff person. It's something that's well within our means
This
to do.
really needs to go in front of the county board. This is really a change in direction from
is,
where the county board
absolutely.
has gone
But I
for
think
many,
it's-
many years. This really does need to be a board discussion. Jerry?
Yes, as a Little League coach, sorry, what do you guys think? Can I ask them a question? You know,
Certainly.
where would you like to see?
Please come to the
Please come to the
microphone and state your name.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
You know,
Oh, shut
Please join me, because I was on the County Board of
Fearless.
Commissioners appointed committee for 8 years. Jocelyn was a parent representative there, John Whitcup, Mike Swager, a local attorney here. We had some major problems last year, as Jason explained. You know, we're here tonight because our main concern is that there's baseball this summer. And it's very clear to us that the county dissolved their relationship, their agreement with, I guess, what their user group was, and it doesn't look like that's coming back. Somebody had mentioned it's now January. Yes, and in my experience in helping to run the league and also coach within the league, and there's a lot of little hidden issues that would have to be worked out. As always, what's on the surface always goes a lot deeper. The American Legion being required to, and I'm just speaking from my own knowledge, not for them, and I'm a member, but I'm not speaking for them, but to adhere to National American Legion standards. This particular Legion post historically did not want to do that because it didn't allow for everyone to play. They have standards that are basically, they're trying to create all-star teams that go to, you know, regionals, state, nationals, things of that nature. Maybe the American Legion can answer those questions for you better than I can. Historically, the Legion Traverse City program was created so that everybody could play. So that would have to be something that would have to be addressed. Cost is also an issue. For a user group that has been under the county's umbrella insurance for its entire existence, to now have to provide that insurance and whatever other requirements are placed upon them is simply going to be handed over to the parents in the form of registration fees. So where is that going to wash out?
If you had a multiple choice option here as to who ran the junior baseball program in 2010, and the choices were Grand Traverse County or American Legion Vietnam Vets or the Little League, what's your preference?
I don't know if Little League is even in the picture. I know that they run differently.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, I think
YMCA,
that
don't they do it?
the county is probably the most capable of running it through their Parks and Rec department.
Second question, am I wrong? I thought that the National American Legion baseball philosophy was everybody bats, everybody plays, and that differed from the Little Leagues drastically, but that was a national policy.
The thing that you are unaware of is that the national policy, they were not any part of this program. It was strictly out of the American Legion at the Traverse City Post. It was not
They were independent.
They were independent.
I also was on the Legion board that you were on before it was dissolved, and I was on the Little League board, and I coached in both leagues, so.
I think both leagues are great. I think the thing here is, the three of us are very compassionate about this. I'm an educator, I'm a mom, and I have 2 kids that have been involved in this program. I'm I know, I've done all the paperwork and everything for the last 3 years. Last year, we had just under 900 kids involved in this program. It is January.
When do you start registration?
We usually get registration out the end of January. We're
Jason.
coming down to the wire here, and
Well, I am certainly willing to contact the administrator and ask him to put it on the board's agenda for next week. Jason?
Just as an additional philosophical thing, the philosophy of American Legion Baseball is more in tune with what would be conducive to be run through a community parks and recreation department versus the mission of Little League. So
Are you talking what has been done in Traverse City or the
I'm talking
national? Okay,
I'm talking the national.
okay.
Everybody, that's more of a recreational, it's more of a recreational league versus a competitive base or a competition-based league.
The other thing that I'm going to want to know before the county board meeting at the end of the month is, does the YMCA run a baseball program?
They run a T-ball program, I believe. No.
they don't.
Okay.
They don't have any kind of baseball program at all. John, jump in here.
I have talked with Barb Beckett with the YMCA, and she said that, she's supposed to talk with you, Jason, I don't know if she has yet, but she said that she would like, if there's affiliation, that the YMCA and Grand Traverse County do a combined program together. That, I think, in my part and Barb Beckett's part, that would be just...
Jerry?
Well, getting back to the department director's rules, if you need to develop and implement new procedures or policies in regards to
You
this...
have to have a budget, and the county board does the budget.
No, but it's just, when you're looking at that, I get together. Let's see what we can bring up. I mean, and if, I like to see this active, 'cause I love baseball,
I
love all
absolutely would love
sports,
to see
and
this happen.
I'd like to see something where, I'd like to see them go national standards. There's a place for all sports, Little League and, American Legion.
There's a question, I really, and I don't argue that I want to see this move forward as well, but I have to tell you, I'm not comfortable even going one step further without consulting the county board. This really does, it represents a change of direction, it may represent a change in the budget, and, and the county board may say, let's go, let's do it, but I think, I want to bring this to the county
Already with the
board.
budget, we've been covering insurance for them. We've been taking care of the fields. We might have to do a process where it's a slow break-in. This is what we do, and work it out to if we need to take over. When's the next time the board meets?
Next week.
And the meeting is, yours is the 26th?
No. Our meeting, we're dissolved.
They're dissolved, but...
You dissolved us. The Board of Commissioners dissolved us.
This is American Legion, their executive board, so the guys that are part of their executive board down at Bowen Holiday Post, they're having their executive board meeting. They're going to talk about baseball, they're going to talk about chicken dinners on Friday night, they're going to talk about a variety of things. The meeting that I'm going to have with Mark Greiner, the president of American Legion, is going to happen after that meeting, because that's one of the items on
Commissioner
their
Doran.
agenda.
Okay.
So I don't know whether or not that meeting will be in place, whether we will have had that meeting by the 28th, which is when the county commission meeting is.
Commissioner Doran.
The registration fees covered the umpires and the baseballs, and what else?
That actually was one of the problems that we had, was that, yes, the registration fees did cover any costs that were affiliated with actually running the league, but that was all handled internally within the American Legion.
Do we know the number?
No, we have no idea. We've never seen books.
We've asked several times and never gotten any.
That's one of the reasons the agreement kind of dissolved.
And who owns the equipment?
We know that 900 children approximately played baseball. How much was it per child to play baseball?
It was $55 before, and then it was $65 per child, between $55 and $65. If you did it before the date, obviously, then it was $55. After the date, let's say March 10th, there was a $10 late fee assessed. So it
And
was
you
$65.
handled all the registration paperwork?
Registration paperwork.
What was,
I did not handle any money.
what equipment is owned by American Legion to operate this league?
Again, you're going back
All of-
historically. This is equipment that was, started back in the 50s, that was just replaced throughout the years, so.
Are we talking,
All
do they
of
have
the
four?
baseball equipment, bats, catcher's gear, helmets, baseball tees. We had, John, 4, 5 pitching machines.
I'm going to have to ask you, we are being televised. If you're going to speak, would you mind coming to the microphone, please?
We had the bats, the helmets, the catcher's gear, the baseball tees. There were five pitching machines.
Are those pitching machines, do they take those away in the winter and store them, or do they leave them?
They're actually still on county grounds right now.
Okay.
They're in a trailer that's next to the.
Okay. These are all questions that we don't need to have answered tonight.
Our concern's been satisfied, that you now know that we're concerned about
And
whether
we
there's
are
going to
as
be
well.
baseball
Commissioner
this
Doran.
summer.
Could I ask Jason to find out from Mr. Griner if they would sell us the equipment and what they have?
I would be happy to.
Jason, you were doing a calculation of just in registration fees. Were you?
Just, let's average, you said
Do you
between
think I
55 and
add
60.
something to that too, real quick? Along with these, each team, we roughly had 50 teams last year, and each team had a sponsor. And the sponsor fee was $350 per team.
That's from outside.
How many teams?
We had roughly 50 teams.
Okay.
That's roughly, all the
And that pretty
businesses and
much
stuff.
covered T-shirts
That
and
was the
hats.
business. The businesses covered T-shirts, hats, and then any of that money as well went into paying for umpires.
Okay.
So Commissioner Maxmeyer, if we can just settle up for what we're doing here, unless there's any additional questions. Clearly, there was an issue between Grand Traverse County and the Civic Center baseball fields for the usage of the Junior Baseball League and the American Legion post that has, some historical implications and everything else.
Right.
Our intent is not to get involved in that whatsoever. It's an issue now between the Legion and the county.
My intent, and I'm speaking for myself personally, is not to get involved in issues, other than I want children to be able to play baseball.
That's what we're
That's
here
my
for.
goal.
Right.
So Jason, you're going to probably attend the meeting on the 26th, correct? And then after that, you're going to meet with
If I
Mr. Grant?
can, because that may be a closed meeting because it's the American Legion meeting.
Really?
Well, it's an
American Legion board meeting,
It's an
correct?
American Legion board meeting. It's not the baseball committee, it's not.
All right.
It's an American Legion committee.
Okay.
Or American
So,
Legion board.
you're going to meet with Mr. Griner after
Yes.
that meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
He's the president of the American Legion board.
And I guess in order to move things along, I would like to know the results of that meeting, and naturally, I know you're going to inform Dennis Aloya of the results of that meeting. I would love it if there's some way you could have it before the county board meeting.
I'll do my best.
Just one quick verifying question. Do you have to have the sponsorship of the local American Legion Post to play American Legion baseball?
Not currently, because they're not part of the National American Legion baseball program.
So
They've chosen to be independent of that. They could enter into it. I would imagine.
We could set up without the American Legion, post here, American Legion baseball.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, we can call it Jerry's Baseball League.
I still get American Legion
One of the,
coverage.
if we take this on, there are a variety of different baseball leagues we could explore too. Knowing the difference between Little League, American Legion, double ABC ball.
Pony.
Pony League.
All right, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's have the meeting. Jason's going to meet with Mr. Greiner, and as soon as he has some information, he's going to share it, I'm sure, with his supervisor, the county administrator, and with us.
And I'll send it to
And
you.
we will move as quickly as we possibly can.
Thank you, and that's one of the reasons why, we are here tonight,
Because it's January, I hear you.
care about these kids.
we
I
just
know
want to
you
make
do.
sure that beautiful baseball fields, they need to be used. There's a different set of circumstances now, so somebody's got to step up to the plate. No
Chris?
pun.
Yeah.
Madam Commissioner. I don't know if we need a motion or something. I'm sitting here thinking that I would like our director to make a presentation to the county commission in
Well, he
regards
may not
to...
be prepared, Chris, so, and I know if...
It's going to be...
It's going to be
tight schedule.
tight, so
Okay,
let,
okay.
He'll do what,
Yeah, wow, okay.
whatever I'm sure he can do. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Secretary's report.
Yes, I was fortunate enough to attend 2 seminars in December. The first one was on customer service. They had a lot of information, it's just a half a day. It emphasized, of course, the importance of the customer, and also identified the customer as not only the person at the counter, but the vendor bringing in supplies, the maintenance person, and the 5-year-old walking in for their first swim lesson. I brought a lot of that information back. Hopefully Kim will be able to incorporate in some of her in-service training with pool staff. The second one was titled Professional Communication. That also presented a lot of information. They gave us a lot of resources that we can research on our own. I don't know if you're getting that or not. They discussed communication skills, of course, but also you need to recognize that there are many different ways that other people receive what you are trying to communicate, and you have to recognize those different styles. There was helpful ideas on making presentations, and it also just as important to be a good listener as it is a speaker. I want to thank the commission for allowing me to attend these seminars and hope that I'll be able to attend more.
How have you implemented what you've learned into your daily practices?
I think that I have done quite a bit on communicating with people, changed some of my habits, customer service. I feel I've improved my customer service. It just in my daily work, it's what I do. Any other
One of the
questions?
things I'd like to add briefly to Marilyn's report in regards to her customer service and her communication. One of the things that Marilyn and I have been working on, and I've been coaching Marilyn on,
And something we've been talking about, and Marilyn, I don't mean to put you on the spot, is the perception of negative responses. And that's something, as Marilyn's supervisor, I've seen that improve in several situations. And
Jason, honestly, and I'm going to stop you here, this is an issue between you and your staff and how you handle your staff. And honestly, I don't think how you handle your staff, this is just my personal opinion, is something that for this board to weigh in on. I mean, I think Commissioner Burns' question of how she's applying what she's learned is perfectly appropriate, but I think that, and this is just my opinion, I think you kind of took it one step.
let's try it this way. I've seen an improvement in Marilyn since you went to this training.
All right, Aquatics Manager Report. I'm sorry, Commissioner Doran.
I'm not used to minutes this detailed. Is that the board's direction to have all of this narrative?
No, actually, we've changed that.
Oh.
I don't believe that next month that you will see
Okay.
this.
All right. I was going to say, this must take a lot of time to write all this stuff up.
Yes, it does.
We really just need the motions and the subjects, I think.
But I got to weigh in.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of detail that we're lacking from the minutes, but now that we have a televised record, if anyone wants to know, okay, what was the parking price per parking space mutually agreed upon, then we can go back and look at that information.
It's
So, you're
basically
right.
what we did as a board Commissioner Doran, is we said, okay, we're going to be more concise with our minutes, but we're going to televise and have a record of our meetings.
Good. Great.
So.
You're right, it is a lot of work.
Aquatic manager report.
All right. Well, I'll skip the first part with the MMRMA letter. We've discussed that. And continuing with staying open over the holidays, the pool was only closed on Christmas and New Year's. We had an increase. We increased our open swims, obviously, with the winter break and kids being out of school. And the pool saw an increase of approximately 501 swimmers as compared to the winter vacation in 2008, with an estimated increase of income of $426.75 just in the open swim times. We've continued our advertising. We do our weekly ad in the Insider. They've been focusing on swim lessons, aqua camp, lifeguard training, and additional open swims that we've had over the holidays. Half flyer sheets went out advertising our swim lesson program. It went to all of the TCAP schools. It came out in the Kids Friday Flyers. The Catholic Elementary School and preschools, as well as Grand Traverse Academy and their preschools. The pool was also highlighted with a 30-minute spot on the Mary in the Morning radio show. That was really fun, by the way.
That is great.
Our swimming lesson enrollment has increased as compared to our fall lesson enrollment, giving us an additional profit of $1,336. I anticipate that the number will continue to rise as we still have a couple more sessions to go in this winter term for swimming lessons. As we talked about earlier, the birthday party packages have been started. Advertising for that has just kind of been done with in-house flyers. We've got a really cute little bulletin board in the pool area, and we've put an ad in the Insider focusing on that. We are currently getting flyers ready to go to the TCAP schools and the schools that I mentioned earlier. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the underwater egg hunt is being worked on, along with, we just sent Laura Engler to participate in a preschool enrichment fair last weekend that showcased all of the activities that the Civic Center, or that the Easling Pool has to offer. And then I'm working on that letter of agreement for the swim team, are kind of my top projects right now.
All right. Any questions for Kim? Director's report.
I'll keep mine short and sweet. Just want to remind you, we'll be at the MRPA Conference and Trade Show the first week of February, and I'll have a report for you from that meeting, or from that conference. It's encouraging to have 5 Parks and Recreation Commissioners that will be attending at least a portion of that conference. So, thank you guys for your interest. Twin Lakes, still exploring some alternative funding. We have all the funds necessary for the the contract that the county has with Hallmark Construction to do phase 1 of the project. The County Ways and Means Committee meeting Tuesday voted to reduce retainage from 10% to 5%. The only outstanding items are installation of handrails, which didn't get done due to weather issues, the top course of paving, and the striping of the parking lot, and a punch list. So, according to Hallmark Construction, requested the retainage reduction, and our landscape architect supported that decision, and the Ways and Means supported it, and it'll be moving on to County Board of Commissioners on Wednesday. Just another minor thing, within our board minutes, our board rules, which are included in the back of your packet, it talks about the chair and the vice chair of this commission. Within Robert's Rules of Order, it calls it the president and vice president. So just something to think about, what you guys want to call it. It doesn't matter to me, but just something to bring up. And it's an issue it's a minor issue that Bob Cooney brought up to me in our discussions with
with appointments to this commission. So I told Bob I'd pass it on to the commission.
All right. One of the things, I'm sorry, Jason, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you?
That's all I...
Okay,
Madam
regarding
Chair.
board rules, and I'll be as brief as possible. When I was reading the board rules, and I'd like the board to consider this and weigh in on it next time, I saw that presentations, are not time limited. And recently at the county board, we have time limited our presentations, and one of the reasons was we sat through one meeting and somebody had given us a PowerPoint, and it took 45 minutes for us to see the PowerPoint that we already had in our packet, and he was basically reading to us. We would rather, when people are presenting to us at the county board, limit the time so that the presenter hits the high points, 10 minutes, whatever we think is reasonable. Commissioners may extend that through questioning, and I'd like the board to give that some thought so that we don't have 30-minute presentations. And I know that presentations occur rarely, but they do occur. So please just give that some thought.
Chris, would that also be with public comment? Because
No.
doesn't Robert rules
No.
give a time limit for public comment?
This is presentations, such as the Winterfest presentation. They would have been limited to a 10-minute presentation, and then questions from the board do not count against the 10 minutes. But this commission certainly doesn't have to adopt that, but I'm tossing it out there for consideration. Commissioner Byrne.
Back in November, we had a discussion, and Russ had actually made a recommendation to Jason in response to my concern about when somebody makes a presentation to us, that there was some sort of form and record and a procedure. And Russ and Jason, at our meeting in December, Russ had stated that him and Jason were going to meet the following week in regards to developing that, and perhaps, I don't know if that meeting has happened and if that has been developed, but that could be something that's added to that.
It's something Russ and I did discuss it. I know how it's
Jason?
supposed to.
Russ and I have discussed it. It's something I know how it's supposed to look. It's just a matter of putting it down on the paper. So you'll have one before the next presentation, proposing something new to this commission.
And do we want to just, is a time limit going to be put on that for presentation, or is that something?
I just tossed it out there for consideration. I don't anticipate that we'll talk about that tonight.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda is comments from commissioners. Any comments from commissioners? Jerry.
I'd like to thank Russ for being the head of this commission since I've started. I thought you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Yes, you did. I would like to have a couple of things on the next agenda. One of them is a pool advisory committee. When LNA was interviewing the many outstanding candidates for the Parks Board, Commissioner Inman asked every person who sat in the interview who was a swimmer, would you be willing to serve on a pool advisory committee? And every single one of them without fail said yes. It's something that I think was in the Lutra report.
And I presented a rough layout of what, I had in mind. And so it's a project that has been started.
Thank you, Kim, but I would like it on the agenda for next month for this commission to discuss on how, if we want to structure one, how we want to structure it. I just would like it as a topic of conversation. I know Commissioner Inman expressed a great deal of interest, and I'd like to carry that interest forward.
Would you like the information that I'd previously done included in this next packet, so that way the new commissioners have that information as well?
Certainly. That would be very helpful. I've talked about board rules. Goals and objectives. One of the things that and I'm just speaking commissioner comments, one of the things I view as a goal for me personally as a Parks Commissioner is to reach out to people and inform them of what's going on in our parks. And Jason, you started that last year with the director's blog, and you know where I'm going with this. I was on it recently, and the last update was April of '09, and it lists Earth Day events. We have so much going on in our parks. I really would like to focus on informing the public and updating them, and I would appreciate it if you have time to do that, great. If you don't, you might want to just take that subject line off. And again, this is just a comment from me. I guess that's about it. Limited public comment. Seeing none. Bob, did you have something?
Yeah, you kind of, there is, anyway. I just became aware of a potential conference, and I don't know if I would be able to go, but I would ask that good materials be brought back and shared, that would be a way that I might kind of get up to speed. Number two, you mentioned a strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a strategic park and recreation plan?
Yes.
Yeah, and I would like a copy of that, and is that on the website, or is it?
No, we have a
So-
strategic plan that was done through 2005, and it is not, we're still, or 2008, sorry. Oh,
But
sorry.
does it still serve as a guide in some degree?
Yeah, and there's a large, it was something I had to ask for when I came on the board, and I finally got it.
Well, they didn't know. I just learned 2
Yeah.
days ago that
Yeah,
I would
so-
be in.
Does anybody have a copy of it?
I have-
there?
You talking about the master plan or the strategic plan? There's two items. There's strategic planning, and then, of course, there's the master.
Oh, I guess I was thinking
And
of
is
the
the master plan on the website?
No, it's huge. It's like this.
I have an additional copy of the master plan that I'd be happy to provide.
Well, if it's that thick.
It's big.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
worth it.
I would like to,
It's good, Beth.
It's worth it, it's very educational.
okay.
Yeah.
So are there copies that I can have? as
Yes.
long- And then I could give it back?
Absolutely.
You can keep it.
Jason, that book that you
Yeah,
made
we-
up for me with the different parks and stuff and the information, that would be ideal for the
Absolutely.
commissioners.
Well, I want to personally thank everybody for their year of service this year. I think we're going to accomplish a great deal, and I guess with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll second.
I guess the attendance sheet stopped at this desk because nobody should.
I second.
I don't know.
I make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
we're done.
I don't remember either.
I'm going to try and be more...